is a feel-good Friday afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. The whole crew back in studio today. I am Brendan Dworzinski. That across the table from me is Dan Lucero. That on the other side of the glass is Spencer Dupuis. A nearly full show for you today. Not quite back to the full 4 hours. We're off just half an hour early today, though, after being off a full hour early the last 2 days. We're done at 5:30 because we've got K-State baseball on our airwaves today. K-State versus Missouri State in Manhattan. That's coming up at 5:30, but we've got plenty to jam in to the next 3.5 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Big news for the Kansas City Chiefs. Late last night, they found their veteran free agent wide receiver. Hollywood Brown is the newest Kansas City Chief. So we will talk all about the Chiefs bringing in veteran wide receiver help. And assuming they take another receiver in the draft, I think they have, for good, for now, solved their long-standing problem with having wide receivers for the future. We're going to talk about that coming up here in this opening segment of the show and what Hollywood Brown is going to bring to this Chiefs offense. We'll talk a little bit about L'Jarius Sneed later on this hour and what exactly is going on the L'Jarius Sneed front. When is he still going to get traded? We will get to that coming up later on in the hour, plus some Change My Mind. We will talk about K-State's loss yesterday to Iowa State. Both Dan and Spencer were there in Kansas City for that game. Likely the end of K-State basketball season, men's basketball season, I should say. The women are certainly making the women's NCAA tournament this year. So we'll get to the loss to Iowa State. Matt Derrick is going to join us later on in the show. We'll get to other news from around the NFL. Wild news day for the NFL. We went last night, 3 hours-ish, less than 2 hours, something like that, between the Keenan Allen trade and the Marquise Brown news. So we couldn't even get Keenan Allen being traded from a team he was with for almost a decade to a new team in the other conference before there was even bigger news, the Super Bowl champion signing a new wide receiver. Then we didn't even get to Drive Time Radio today before we had more big news, which is one of the 2 or 3 greatest players in the Super Bowl era on the defensive side of the ball retiring.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, to me, it's Donald and LT.
The best defensive tackle of his era, I think, is the most controversy-free way to say it, because you'll have folks of a certain generation argue for Mean Joe Green, and they might not be wrong, and argue for Randy White, and they might not be wrong either. But certainly of his era, okay, fine, I'll be controversial. The best defensive player, period, of his era.
I agree with that.
Of the free agency era, if you really spread it out. Aaron Donald hanging it up, 10 years, 10 Pro Bowls, 3 Defensive Player of the Years, I think. Just incredible career.
Yeah, remarkable. So we'll get to that.
Also, a big upgrade to the Seattle Seahawks offensive line in one fell swoop.
The entire division, I think.
Not to mention the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals, certainly.
I mean, shoot, the graphic that the Rams posted on social media to announce his retirement just said, "Quarterbacks rejoice." Yeah, no, that's for real. Real quick, just while we're on this, and we'll get to the rest of the show here in just a second. Geno Smith tweeted something at Aaron Donald today about, I'll miss competing with you, even though you went to Pitt, you went to West Virginia, of course, best of luck, all those nice things. And some Seahawks fan tweeted a video back at him of Geno Smith getting rocked by Aaron Donald and said, you're saying congratulations to this thug? Geno Smith replied, "It's football, bruh." Yes. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. So many clowns out here. Oh, my quarterback got hit so hard. It's football. That's the point. Give me a break. Good for Geno Smith. Give extra points for Geno in my book after that. Anyway, we'll get to the rest of the NFL news later on in the show today. Big 12 tournament semifinals tonight, plus some other wild news around college basketball. One of the top teams in the country narrowly avoided one of their best players having a severe injury today. Braden Smith of Purdue was just laying face down on the floor for a couple minutes today with a knee injury and then returned to the game. Very scary moment for Zach Edey, who I thought was going to cry.
Got hurt last week, too, and they had to help him off the floor, and he came back and played.
Flopper? We putting out the flop warning?
Unethical hooper, perhaps?
Ooh, we'll get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines, What Is Wrong With You Weekly Championship, and much more coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you to hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. Show is also streaming on the WIBW News Facebook page and on at 580 Sports Talk on Twitter. Want to remind you, when it comes to the Top City Metal Supply text line, that from construction sites to renovations, from the farm to the garage, Top City Metal Supply understands the value of precision and cost efficiency. No more wasted materials, no more wasted money. Metal cut to the exact size you need. Top City Metal Supply, located on South Topeka Boulevard. Also a reminder that coming up next Tuesday, the crew will be up at Prairie Band Casino and Resort at the Prairie Band Sportsbook. We will be there as we get ready for the opening play-in games of the National Men's College Basketball Championship Tournament. We will take you for a full show up until the start of the play-in games. First 25 folks. This doesn't include us, by the way, since we're actually hosting the show.
Darn.
First 25 folks who show up at the sportsbook, walk up to Vince and the rest of the crew at the counter at the sportsbook and say, parlay your way. That's all you have to do. $10 free bet. First 25 people who come up. So do that. If you're on the fence about, do I want to place bets on the tournament, you literally get a free bet if you say parlay your way at the counter. That's it.
Put it on Samford to win the tournament.
It's free.
Yeah.
No cost to you. Only the opportunity cost. So we'll see you up at Prairie Band Sportsbook coming up on Tuesday next week for a full edition of the show.
I think, too, they're giving away Royals tickets on their social media.
Yes, they are having all sorts of giveaways on the social media accounts for Prairie Band Sportsbook. There are other watch party promotions they've got going on, so we'll talk all about it as we gear up for the start of the Men's College Basketball National Tournament coming up next week. But the big news of the day, it broke late last night, Hollywood Brown. He is the newest member of the Kansas City Chiefs. 1 year, $7 million maximum value, or I'm sorry, $7 million base salary. Maximum value of the contract is $11 million. Do you think he is going to contribute to this offense?
Yes.
Yes.
A sixth-year veteran with great speed, offers something the Chiefs don't have. If you think he's going to be a contributor, you're not beating $7 million plus incentives. I mean, you're just not going to do better than that.
And you put him with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and you give him to Patrick Mahomes.
Instead of Kyler Murray.
Half a year of Kyler Murray, another half a year of Kyler Murray, and then Colt McCoy, who started the year for them this year. Josh Dobbs for a couple weeks. Like, yeah, he's got a real quarterback. And from Bill Barnwell, I saw this last night, and Dan, you pointed it out as well. The last time that Hollywood Brown had his quarterback fully healthy and was in an offense that wasn't coming out of the Stone Age was the first 6 weeks of 2022. 102 catches, 1,374 yards, 8 touchdowns, if you extrapolate his production from that week over the course of a season.
122 catches.
What did I say, 22?
Yeah, you said 02.
122.
Yeah, 122. Super productive in the right situation.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go that far back. That's only 2 years ago. And it's not like we're talking about a player who is about to exit his athletic prime. Hollywood Brown is 26 years old and should have some good football left ahead of him. Certainly some good football to play in 2024. And the more I think about this, I really like this fit better than I know we had talked about some other guys like Darnell Mooney, who ended up not signing with the Chiefs, or Curtis Samuel, who ended up signing yesterday with the Bills. I think that Hollywood Brown is a much better fit because he's a guy that's going to give the Chiefs something that they obviously want to have in their receiver room, a dynamic skill set, the ability to stretch the field, the ability to hit for some big plays, yards after the catch with some speed, but also a player who can do those things better than the guys they had doing them on the team last year.
I mean, if you wanted to make this as simple of a comparison as possible, do you think Marquise Hollywood Brown is going to be better than MVS?
Yeah, 100%.
Smaller
no doubt.
than MVS, but MVS, despite being big, wasn't a jump ball guy. Like MVS is, I think, 6'3". I mean, he's a big dude, but he's not a go up and get it kind of receiver. So it's not like you're losing that anyway. You've got probably even better speed from Hollywood, and MVS dropped problems his whole career. Hollywood Brown also gets a knock for 3% drop percentage over the course of his career, which isn't like Larry Fitzgerald, but it's also better than MVS. Like that's the comparison you're making here. You're a veteran, free agent 1 year and we'll see what the future holds wide receiver. That's the player you're adding here. And the thing that Brown brings to the table also, and this is what was most important to me for this team building its wide receiver room going forward. He is bringing something that you otherwise do not have. Like Rashee Rice is fast, but you don't think of him as a burner. Like he is not a true go deep, bleep it, Rashee down there somewhere wide receiver. I mean, that's not what his game is. Justin Watson is fast. He's a vertical receiver, but again, you don't think of him as a burner by any means. Hollywood Brown is that. He has always been that. Since he was at Oklahoma, he's been that guy. In the NFL, he has been that guy. He is a true downfield weapon, something the Chiefs don't have. You know what also is very useful in Hollywood Brown's game that the Chiefs don't have? I saw this yesterday from Matt Harmon, who does some work for Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy Sports. You might say, okay, fantasy in bio, that's not the kind of guy I want to hear from. He created this thing called reception perception. It's mostly for like dynasty fantasy football, but essentially it just breaks down wide receivers. How successful are they on every single route in the route tree? How often do they run those? It's actually incredibly useful. His profile on Marquise Hollywood Brown. Post routes, so that is a vertical break to the inside of the field. Dig routes, which is out and in. A curl route, I mean, I'm trying to dumb this down as much as I can. Curl route, go out, turn back in toward the middle of the field. 78% success rate or better on all three of those routes. Why is that significant for the Chiefs? What do defenses do? What do defensive backs do against the Chiefs more than they do against any other team in the NFL? Two high safeties. They put two high safeties, the two deep shell over the top. You're not going to beat us over the top. Well, doesn't it sound like it would be really useful then to have a guy who's good after the catch because he's so fast, who is really good at in-breaking routes where you can attack soft parts of the field where the safeties have dropped behind the rest of the defense? Doesn't that feel like something that would be very useful for a Chiefs team?
Extremely
useful for a Chiefs team. Like that to me screams you found a piece that you did not have before. That is what the Chiefs have done to build this wide receiver room over the last couple of years, really. And this year, I mean, it was a bad wide receiver room overall, and still were able to find a way to win a championship. But really, this reminds me a little bit more of 2022 when he brought in Juju on that 1 year prove it deal.
Right.
Kelsey was healthy for the entire course of the year. And you had guys who could do different things. Juju offered you something you did not otherwise have. He was like a third down possession receiver, essentially. You didn't have that. Now, I think Rashee Rice, not a true possession receiver, but he's got a little bit more of those traits. You don't have the vertical threat. Now you do. You've got the guy who can beat these zone defenses. This is a great fit. If you want to tell me you've got issues because of the drops or because there have been times in his career where he's kind of disappeared, I'm willing to listen to that. I would refute that, or my retort would be, look who his quarterback is and look who the pieces around him are. You can live with that. You don't need him to be a 1,000-yard receiver. You need him to be a 600-yard receiver with good yards after the catch ability. That's all you need.
I understand some concern. Sam verbalizes this in the YouTube live chat, asking about the injuries. He had a broken foot a couple years ago. Last year, there were some nagging things. He missed 3 games. He hasn't played a full season the last 3, though it's not like he's missed huge chunks of games. And it also isn't the sort of injury that it feels like is a long-term concern, not the type of long-term injuries you're really worried about. So I don't know that I'm that concerned about the injury history. You could point to last year, he had the fewest yards per catch of any year in his career. But again, look who he was playing for. Look at the offense that they were in. Look at the things that he was being asked to do. You've got to provide context to the numbers. Look at the skill set instead. Like, that's how you evaluate this. Don't evaluate this based on the back of the football card. Evaluate this based upon the things that Hollywood Brown has established in his career that he's capable of doing. And that is a skill that the Chiefs really didn't have a whole lot of. Like, I know that the idea behind Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who is fast,
yes,
is that's the guy who's going to stretch the field. That's the guy who's going to take the top off the defense. Well, the defense has to respect you for you to be an actual threat to take the top off the defense. And I don't think defenses respected Marquez Valdes-Scantling and that threat in the way that they're going to respect Hollywood Brown and the threat that his speed and his big playability provides. So I do think it gives the Chiefs more of the field to work with. When they have him on the field running routes, they will have more of the field to work with. They will have more space. And the thing about Patrick Mahomes, you give him space to operate, he's going to put the ball on somebody, and they're going to move the ball down the field. The Chiefs are going to move the ball. So I like the addition from that perspective. Patrick Mahomes seemed to be very happy with it on social media last night. Yeah. Hollywood Brown went on Twitch and was playing Tech 9 all night. Like, he was having a great time. I would be, man, if I were a wide receiver and I got to go from playing with recovering Kyler Murray in the desert with the most maybe irrelevant team in football to playing with Patrick Mahomes and the two-time champs, man, you couldn't tell me anything. If I were Hollywood Brown, I wouldn't have slept since I got that contract faxed back over to One Arrowhead Drive. So I think it's something to be excited about, I think,
too, that cap number is really relatively good for who you're getting.
Oh, yeah.
1 year, $7 million with a max out at 11. I think that still gives you some room to work with in other places as well.
Yeah, you've still got flexibility. You can move things around. We talked about it
and you still got to figure out L'Jarius Sneed.
So. Well, yeah, and we'll get to Sneed specifically a little bit later on and what the situation is with him. But you're right about that. And Mahomes restructuring his contract, that made things a little bit easier. You can do some restructures with some other guys too to open up a little more room to have more flexibility. The other thing too about this move that I think is important to me, the last 2 seasons now, and again, it's incredible that the Chiefs have, and I mean, Patrick Mahomes is incredible, have won a Super Bowl and have had a really good offense despite having such a weak wide receiver room 2 years in a row. This year, even worse than the year prior. The problem has still been lingering that you don't have anything for the future. Like, there's nothing that makes you think like, oh yes, 2 years from now, we're still going to have a good wide receiver room. You just haven't had enough guys. You haven't had enough young guys. Sky Moore's a bust. I mean, he's not a good NFL player. It happens sometimes. Kadarius Toney has not worked out. He's certainly not getting a second contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. You've got Rashee Rice. He's a nailed-on guy. He's a future piece. That's fine. But now, if you go and you draft another wide receiver, and I still would not be opposed to taking one with my first 2 picks. Anytime in the first 3 rounds, I would assume the Chiefs are going to end up taking one. Let's say you take one there and they're at least serviceable. They're better than Sky Moore. They're a guy who's going to be around for the entire duration, 4 years of their contract in all likelihood. So this year then, you've got Rashee Rice, nailed-on starter, Marquise Hollywood Brown, nailed-on starter, rookie going to contribute, and then what, wide receiver 4 is Justin Watson, or he starts the year as wide receiver 3 is wide receiver 4 by the end of the year in place of the rookie. Like, okay, you're set for this year. And then going into next season, you set yourself up again. Maybe you take a late round pick to fill out the room. Maybe you go with another veteran. You finally have multiple guys who you can look forward to and say, we've got contributors for the long term. We've got multiple guys who are going to help us for multiple years. We've got long-term talent and we've got long-term depth, something that this team has not had for multiple years since Tyreek Hill left. So that is very valuable, I think, for the Kansas City Chiefs. People forget when we talk about free agency, even when it comes to a one-year move, you're not always necessarily planning for, well, just this season we have a need. No, next season you've also got a need for wide receiver. The year after that, there might be a need at that spot because you need so many of them in today's NFL. Doing something like this and then stacking on another drafted wide receiver sets you up long-term in a way that you just weren't prepared for before.
Yeah, I still think the Chiefs end up drafting a wide receiver, if not at number 32, certainly in the first 2 days of the NFL draft. And I still think, like, if I had to guess right now on March 15th, what position the Chiefs' first-round draft pick is going to play, I would still guess wide receiver, just because I think that there are going to be potential impact players available at that position in a way that there won't be, I don't believe, at some other positions of need for the Chiefs, namely offensive tackle and safety. So I still think wide receiver is where the Chiefs lean in the draft. But now all of a sudden you're talking about a group that includes an established player in Hollywood Brown, exciting prospect entering year 2 in Rashee Rice with coming off an outstanding rookie season. And now whoever else it is that comprises the rest of the receiver room, whether that's more one-year deal Richie James types, whether you do hang on to the Sky Moores and Justin Watsons of the world, you're not as reliant on those guys. You are not as, like, the Chiefs put a lot of eggs in the Sky Moore basket last year. fewer eggs in that basket would seem to be a really, really good idea for the Chiefs, if indeed he's even on the roster in 2024.
Right.
So I just think that we all kind of agreed that adding a veteran wide receiver was the thing that the Chiefs had to do, and I think they got one that best fits their needs. Is he maybe the best possible free agent wide receiver? I think you can pick nits on that and say, no, I think Kendrick Bourne's a better player, or no, I think Curtis Samuel's a better player if you like his skill set better, or no, I like Darnell Mooney with the 1,000-yard season in Chicago where no receivers get 1,000-yard seasons. You can argue for any of those guys, but I think the Chiefs did, given the skill set and the contract value, the best job they possibly could have done in addressing something that they absolutely needed to address this offseason.
I would have been happy with any of the receivers we've talked about already this week. We talked about Tyler Boyd a lot yesterday. I really like Tyler Boyd. Maybe not a typical Chiefs wide receiver, but he's a really good player. I would have been happy with that. We heard from Mike Garafolo of NFL Network on what would have been Wednesday this week. The Chiefs tried to trade for Deontay Johnson. They clearly wanted to go get a veteran. I would have been happy with either of those guys. But Hollywood Brown is also a good fit. This, to me, isn't a consolation. This is, we still are adding speed, which we needed. We're adding someone who can win in the middle of the field, where Patrick Mahomes is not scared to throw the ball, where you can help out, because right now you only have one guy who's really a middle of the field attacker, and it's your aging tight end. This is a really good ad for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I hope that Chiefs fans are excited about it, and I know Hollywood Brown is very excited about it as well. Coming up a little bit later on, we'll talk about the L'Jarius Sneed situation and, what is the next situation, or what are the Chiefs going to be able to do with him? Is it still going to likely be a trade? Maybe he'll stick around. We'll get to that. But before we get there, we've got this week's edition of Change My Mind coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started here on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. He's Spencer. Thanks so much for hanging out with us on this Friday afternoon. We'll get to more on the Chiefs in a little bit. Talk plenty of Big 12 basketball this hour as well, including what might be a postmortem for K-State, although we'll know for certain coming up on Sunday. But first things first, it's time for Change My Mind. Did you know that the next season of Grey's Anatomy will be that show's 20th season? Can you believe that show's been on 20 years?
That's cannot, but I was aware it had been on for quite a long time. My wife still likes to watch it.
I've known it's a long time. I didn't realize it was 20 years.
I remember when it was first on, and this is a funny story from, I don't even know if I was a teen at the time. Probably not. It's been on for 20 years. When it first debuted, it went back to back with Desperate Housewives on ABC. And I used to watch them back to back with my mom, which like at 9 years old, I probably shouldn't have watched Desperate Housewives. Abby and I have since rewatched it. Wild show. But changed my mind. Grey's Anatomy will end before the Big Ten National Championship basketball team streak ends. The last Big Ten team to win the men's college basketball national championship was Michigan State in the year 2000. That season began before Y2K. That's the last time that a Big Ten team has won the national championship.
Shout out to McTeen Cleaves and the Flintstones.
And rosters change over all the time. I understand that. But right now, look at the best teams in the Big Ten. Michigan was, and they fell in the sewer. They're terrible. They have to rebuild, essentially.
Fired their coach today,
Yeah, at least a year too late.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was going to happen whenever that whole scandal went down.
Illinois is about to lose its two best players to the draft/graduation. Purdue, they're about to lose Zach Edey. He already said, I'm not coming back for another year, and I don't think they're winning the national title this year.
I don't either.
If they have a bad day shooting from three, they can't win. Like, I don't see an end in sight. Michigan State is not what they were even a few years ago. I don't see an end in sight for that. So which ends first? I think it'll be Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, I do too. Like, I've seen bits and pieces of that show with my wife watching it, and I don't know, man. That feels like a show running out of ideas.
They were running out of ideas in like 2012, and it's still on somehow.
So it survived and thrived after Katherine Heigl left, which was a stunner.
Like, Ellen Pompeo's got to be bored at this point, right?
I think she left the show too.
Did she really?
I think so.
How do you have the show?
Are you talking about Meredith Grey, the one that played Meredith Grey? She came back.
Oh, she's back now.
According to the ads that I saw the other day.
Okay.
She returned.
How do you have Grey's Anatomy without Grey?
Dr. Grey?
She returned.
I don't know, man. I'm just telling you. Yeah. I saw her leave. It was this emotional thing.
I remember the episode from when I watched when I was a preteen with my mom on Sunday nights, where a child was ripping brass staples out of her arm, and I said, "Nope, I'm done." Yeah, like this. That was nonsense in 2000, whatever that was.
There's
7.
A reason I'm more than happy to let my wife watch that show without me, because I can't do like the medical shows. I can't do them. Cannot do them. And but now she still likes it, still watches it every week. I think it will end. I think it will end first. I'll say, I'll even go further. I'll say The Simpsons ends before the Big Ten National Championship drought.
What is it going to take for The Simpsons? I hate to be morbid, because I know you're a big, huge Simpsons fan. I hate to be morbid, but like, it's cast members dying, right?
It would,
or cancel.
Dan Castellaneta
culture
dying would be. Well, no, they survived that. Like the whole thing with,
true.
We've let a white guy do an Indian impersonation for Apu's voice for years and years. The Simpsons were like, yeah, man, that was kind of messed up. And the actor Hank Azaria was like, yeah, that was kind of messed up. And now they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, they survived that. But yeah, like, if you don't have the voice of Homer Simpson, you can't
can't do it.
Another voice of Homer Simpson. Yeah, that's probably going to be, because there's no sign of it slowing down. I haven't watched a new Simpsons episode since like 2012.
Admittedly, like, I don't know who does. Like, I'm not saying that they don't still have the occasional funny episode.
I don't know who the new Simpsons is for. Like, if I have a hankering to watch America's Favorite Family, I dial up Disney Plus and I go watch something from like season 5.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just such a staple, though. Like, when Cowboys Giants ends at 6:30, they're gonna do the OT on Fox, and then they're gonna go right into The Simpsons. Like that. That's what life is on Sundays during TV season. So wow, that's a bold one.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily dislike it, though.
Think of who the Big Ten is adding in basketball. Like, whatever the ghost of
the
UCLA,
bad basketball programs from the Pac-12?
Yes. Oregon and Washington, who never won anything. I'm sorry, I don't count the Oregon Tall Furs and the first ever NCAA tournament championship. I'm sorry
the
to say.
Webfoots, excuse me.
I do not count that. Washington basketball has never been good. USC basketball. I was talking to somebody in the press box about this yesterday. When USC beat Kansas State earlier this year, I thought that was a second weekend NCAA tournament team. They had Boogie Ellis and Isaiah Collier in the backcourt. They were going to get Bronny James. They were big. They were athletic. That looked like a really good team. They're not sniffing the they're a losing record. What the hell happened?
Yeah. And I think Andy Enfield's a pretty good coach.
I don't think he's a bad coach, but that was wild. Anyhow, yeah, not real big on the future prospects of Big Ten basketball, because eventually Izzo's going to hang it up, and then what? Then what do you got? Like, who's the best coach in that conference when Izzo quits? The guy who lost to a 16 seed?
Underwood?
Brad Underwood?
I mean, I think Brad Underwood's a really good coach.
Yeah.
I can't, by the way, I know we're getting off track here. I was just talking to Abby about this the other night. I cannot believe how long we were talking about Mike Boynton getting fired. And I said, yeah, it's crazy to think he was there for 7 years. Feels like just yesterday he was hired. Then I thought, it's crazy to think Brad Underwood's been at Illinois for 7 years.
Yeah.
I remember being in Tulsa at the NCAA tournament. I think you were there that weekend, right?
I was there, and I opened my phone, and I saw it on my phone, and I said out loud to no one in particular, we were in line to get into the KU locker room. You might have been in the same line. We didn't know each other yet. And I said, Brad Underwood's going to Illinois? And it was news to literally everyone in line. I think I broke the news to like some prominent college basketball reporters.
We were camping, myself and my two fellow KU classmates who were there for student radio. We were waiting for the press conference. We were like, we'll just wait for Bill to talk at the press conference. And the way it works at the NCAA tournament, not every site, but most, they put the dais up, the lectern, if you will, up on a riser. And then they just put, 8 rows of folding chairs back, about 8 across on each side. Maybe it's just one big row. And the entire room gasped at the exact, like we all saw Jeff Goodman's tweet or whatever, all at the exact same time. And everyone went, and then anyone who didn't have their phone said, what? Why is everyone gasping?
Free for all.
We couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was shocking. And I can't believe it was that long ago. I'm so old.
Yeah.
I was a senior in college that long ago. I don't love that. Anyway, what was your answer, Spencer? Which ends first, the Big Ten tournament route or Grey's Anatomy?
It's got to be Grey's Anatomy. I mean, shows that last longer than 20. It's especially for like animated shows are different, right? Like that kind of show is like that's different for them to last that long because they're just voice actors and they just sit in a studio and voice things for however long. When you're like doing a real show, like that takes a toll on you on your time. Like it's gonna end soon. Like they're
I would think
like Grey's Anatomy spinoff is about to it gets canceled after this season anyway. So
jeez,
like that only came like 6 years ago.
I didn't even know there was a whole Grey's Anatomy cinematic universe. All right, you guys have either any change my minds today?
Change my mind. You know what? I'm going to hold mine. I'm going to hold mine for the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to talk a little bit about the Big 12 semifinals,
right.
and I want to talk a little bit about what our pal CJ Moore had to say on the show later on. So I'm going to holster my change my mind, and we'll get to it later.
Anything for you?
Yes, this could be seen as a bias homer thing.
Okay,
but I think the Commanders will be a winning organization, winning a Super Bowl in the next 10 years.
Okay, so I am going to say,
is Mahomes going to retire in the next 10 years? Is he going to play the next 10 years?
So I like where your head's at. Definitely a homer thing, but that's okay. We accept all fans here. I would say no, just because of it's just really hard to win a Super Bowl. Like I think
that's why I didn't say 5 years.
I would say,
if I said 5 years, then I would be like, yeah,
but they haven't won one in your life. Like
I know.
Start small. If you had said, "Hey, change my mind," the Commanders can win the NFC East next year, I would say, you know what?
They won it when they sucked too. So that's not a change my mind thing. Like, what was it? We were in the the 2010s where one team a year they would just every
trade
year
off.
they trade off.
There hasn't been a repeat winner of the division in this century.
Yeah, so that's why that winning the division is not winning the division's easy compared to getting to the Super Bowl. Clearly,
I would agree with that. I was not expecting the retort to be, well, I could have given you a shorter time period. I would say no, just more than anything, just because like every year you only have a 1 in 32 chance.
Yeah.
Also, Patrick Mahomes is alive. That complicates
things.
How
about this? Make it to a Super Bowl.
That's a little more reasonable. Like I think they have improved this offseason, and not in the we're just shooting the money cannon at the most bold-faced names on the free agent list way that we're accustomed to the Commanders, the Washingtons, making free agent headlines. But no, they seem to have done some really sensible upgrades. And, if they get some decent quarterback play next year from whoever it ends up being, why not? Why can't they be competitive?
Yeah, they're definitely on an upswing. I would say that. I think hold this for March 15th of 2025. I need to see if Jaden Daniels / Drake May is any good.
Yes. We'll do that.
Because more than anything, it's going to hinge on that. Like, the roster is better. No doubt about that. But if Drake May comes in and he's, buns, then suddenly you have to restart the clock all over again.
I mean, we'll get into this later, probably in the NFL latest segment when we talk, if we talk about, the trades going down and what the compensation. I mean, the fact that they traded Sam Howell and they got what they got for it when we're seeing these other trades is definitely crazy to me. And I think that they finally got a real GM.
We will also get to the Kenny Pickett trade today. The Steelers gave him up for nothing. A former first-round pick 2 seasons ago to move up 22 spots in the draft. That's it.
Commanders got more for how?
That was a
crazy.
That was a we just want you to leave trade from the Steelers.
Yeah, there are some not so nice things coming out about Kenny Pickett. Like he didn't. Like as soon as he found out he wasn't going to be the starter, he essentially said, "Get me out of here." Which Kenny, have you seen your stats recently? We have to get to a timeout, but when we come back, the latest on the L'Jarius Sneed situation. Is a trade still the most likely outcome? We'll discuss after this on 580 Sports Talk. Don't forget to hit us up either on the YouTube comments. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find our live stream on YouTube, youtube.com. Just search 580 Sports Talk, easiest way to find us. Show is also live streaming on Facebook, WIBW News on Facebook. You can comment there, or you can find us on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk. You can send us a comment on Twitter, too. We can't reply directly to you, but we can see it on the air on Twitter. Also, hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. Some interesting notes on L'Jarius Sneed and what is going on with him. So a couple of different quasi-reports over the last couple of days. This first one was from actually a couple days ago. Cam Marino, who's mostly a draft guy, used to write for USA Today, now writes for NFL Draft Buzz, I believe, which, despite its goofy name, is indeed a reputable website, said that on the L'Jarius Sneed front, told a handful of teams are monitoring. Some believe he returns to Kansas City. In the case he does become available, despite continued interest from teams, including the Falcons and Vikings, the feeling I've had is that the Indianapolis Colts are the team to beat. Indianapolis is headstrong in pursuit of more talent in the secondary. So to add on to the part about the Colts here first, their beat writer for ESPN, Stephen Holder, who's been doing it for a long time, he had a thread on Twitter this morning about this. Regarding Chiefs cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, who was franchised and given permission to speak a trade, my understanding is the holdup is less about KC's willingness to trade him, more about the challenge of agreeing to a new contract. Would effectively be a sign-and-trade situation, so you need to figure out the trade compensation and a new deal. The Colts and other teams continue to have interest, but that's where it stands. And then he clarifies, I was told the Chiefs are being reasonable. The bigger question is whether anyone can come to terms with Sneed on a contract. That to me is fascinating and good for L'Jarius Sneed. You had a great year. You've had a very good career up until this point. Go get paid. You only get so long to get paid in this league. He's had a knee injury. He's 27, going on 28 years old. Go make your money while you can. I've got absolutely no problem with that. That to me right there, however, would indicate, one, the Chiefs are committed to getting this done. Like if you are hearing that a team is being reasonable in what they are requesting for an all-pro caliber starter at cornerback, they are willing to make that trade. That to me screams they are almost trying to give him away at this point. Like if they are being quote unquote reasonable, that's NFL insider speak for they can't get rid of this guy quickly enough.
They're not looking for a first round pick is what that says. Like they are comfortable with the offers that are being presented, whether that's second round pick. I'd be surprised if it's third or fourth. Like I feel like it's probably a second round pick. And if that's all the Chiefs get, an early day 2 pick for L'Jarius Sneed, I think they'd be willing to take that. Now, I don't know how the dollar amounts shake out in terms of the salary cap to the point of, would the Chiefs be happy to, if they don't get an offer they like, let Sneed play on the tag? Is that tenable for the Chiefs is my question. But I certainly think that's more preferable for the Chiefs than to trade him for something less than he's worth, because the trading team, because you don't want to trade a second round pick for a rental, right? You're not, I can't think of a team who would do that. Maybe Philadelphia. Like maybe they would say, hey, we'll take this guy for a guaranteed year, and then I guess we'll see when he hits free agency, or because you can tag a player if you acquire him in trade if they were tagged the year before. You can be tagged twice, but you can't be tagged. You can be tagged back-to-back years, but you can't like repeatedly be tagged, right? Mm-hmm. So that's in the CBA. So maybe there's a team that thinks, oh, we'll acquire him, then we'll tag him next year, and we'll see what we can do. But I don't think you're paying as high a price for a player you don't know if you're going to have more than 1 year. So that's where I think the holdup via trade is the Chiefs are willing to accept. They understand the value. There's an agreement between the Chiefs and would-be acquirers of L'Jarius Sneed on what appropriate value in return is. The question is Sneed going to end up in a place where he's on a long-term contract? And if his demands are not reasonable, then the question comes back, how willing are the Chiefs, how able are the Chiefs to say, hey, you know what? You play on the tag this year. Maybe we'll, put together a 1-year offer that's a little more cap friendly, that is close to the tag number, and then we'll tag.
Essentially what they did with Chris Jones.
Right, and then we'll do this again next year.
Yeah.
Which, you don't want to be in the same position over and over again, but I still think that keeping him and having him play on the tag is a more desirable outcome than taking less than the guy's actually worth and trading a guy who had the year that he had and you're only getting like a 4th-round pick back.
The only thing with if you redid the tag is it still would apply, like second-year tag rule would still apply, so the dollar amount would go up. It would go up to 22 or whatever. So at that point, you're essentially saying, we're just doing this to give ourselves time to make a trade, which, I mean, might be fine at that point. It's kind of an interesting setup here. I sort of liken it to like a posting fee for like Japanese professional baseball or Korean professional baseball, where when the Angels wanted to get Shohei Ohtani, or those teams were chasing after Shohei Ohtani, they had to pay, I don't remember which team he played for in NPB, but they had to pay his team first.
He was a Nippon Ham fighter.
He was a ham fighter?
Yes.
I know it's just fighters, but it's fun to say ham fighters. They had to pay the Nippon Ham fighters first and then negotiate with Shohei Ohtani on top of that. That's essentially what you're doing here. You've got to come to an agreement. Okay, Chiefs, we'll give you a 2nd-round pick and a 7th or whatever, and then you work out the deal with L'Jarius Sneed. So it's kind of an interesting setup with these tag and trade moves. Clearly, this one is a little bit more difficult than, say, Frank Clark, when the Chiefs acquired him on the when he was franchise tagged by the Seahawks and then brought him in. That went pretty smoothly. This one isn't necessarily not going smoothly, but it is pretty clear that there are more hangups with this. I still think it is more likely that he gets traded. And again, you can tell me if I'm going over the top with how I'm reading this stuff from Stephen Holder, but again, usually it's this team will not go beyond this threshold, even if they're certainly willing to. Like the agent speak and the team speak is always worded very specifically. And I don't know if Stephen Holder's more tuned into the players or the team with Indianapolis or what, but to hear that a team is being reasonable is like a glaring, flashing red light to me. Like, okay, they're willing to get this done. Like,
yes,
that. And in fact, it might just say they've already got framework done.
Yeah, that's exactly the way to put it. Like the framework is probably in place, and if Stephen Holder's sources are within the Colts organization, you could interpret that as saying, yeah, the player's asking for the sun, moon, and the stars, and we're not sure we can make that happen.
I think it'll be the Colts, and I do think they get the trade done. I will leave it at that. It is kind of interesting, though. And now that you bring in Hollywood Brown, I think it takes away, because I talked about this on the show Wednesday with that restructure for Mahomes. If you wanted, you could just use that restructure entirely to pay for L'Jarius Sneed's franchise tag. Like, you could eat that up and still have $2 million extra. But then you bring in, the re-signed guys in the defensive line. You bring in Hollywood Brown. That's probably a little bit more unlikely at this point. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour, we'll talk to Matt Derrick about everything going on with the Chiefs, including Hollywood Brown. But we'll lead things off with K-State falling to Iowa State last night in Kansas City. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. final 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk just getting underway. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That is Dan Lucero. That is Spencer Dupuis. We're here with you until 5:30 today. Got some K-State baseball coming up late this afternoon into the evening. K-State taking on Missouri State. Get the metal bats out. Get some ping, ping.
You have a pretty convincing
Thank
sound
you.
effect there. Well
I'm pretty good at making sounds.
I am. I make all kinds of fun.
all kinds of
I make all
sounds.
kinds of fun sounds. My wife doesn't think they're fun all the time, but yeah.
Are most of them like groaning as you sit on the couch? Because that's what a lot of mine are.
Yeah, a lot of.
And are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Just getting cozy. I'm good. Speaking of getting cozy, I feel like Spencer right now. We still don't have a couch.
Now you know the feeling.
We've officially lived in our new house for 3 weeks now. We bought a couch the Friday after we closed. So I think today starts week 4, and it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
Shoo.
I don't know if you guys know this. The NCAA men's basketball tournament begins next week.
Yes.
Currently, our basement has no rug. It's just cement, which is very cold when it's not like hot out. It's in fact really cold downstairs. We have a rolling office chair with a tear in the cushion, and we have like a nice antique chair. Nice cushion. That's the more comfortable of the two. That's it. That's our seating in our basement. I could bring out a folding chair if I wanted. That's our seating.
Well,
currently, I am set up to watch the NCAA tournament on a rolling office chair on a cement floor in my basement.
am I going to have to invite both of you guys over?
I need, like, it's coming. We're just,
like, our house is a war zone right now for a variety of reasons, but I think we could clean it up enough. Like, if you guys are fishing for an invite to the sports dungeon.
Hey, Kansas had to is not helping us any. So
oh my God, I know. It's the dream of going to Omaha first weekend, slipping away day by day at this point.
How do you feel about Salt Lake City?
what
Listen,
about Spokane? Spokane, sorry.
You East Coasters.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Get out and see the Pacific Ocean sometime, why don't you?
Shout out to the Pacific Northwest. I was in Salt Lake City the last time KU went. I made the trip out there. And I have told you before, underrated. Now, again,
No, like Salt Lake City's it's a city on the move, man. It's a growing city. It's
one of the best burgers I've ever had in my life was in Salt Lake City.
I'm not gonna say anything bad about Salt Lake City.
And also, this is I believe I told you this once at the time, and you were like, "You're making this up." Shockingly good Mexican food in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I still believe you're making that up.
Yeah, I would agree.
A lot of Mormon missionaries went down to Mexico. A lot of folks from Mexico moved up, and shockingly good. There was a 24-hour Mexican place, like 5-minute walk from the hotel I stayed in, which was a dump. Don't stay there.
You just got to go find the right places. I think that's probably true anywhere. Like I think probably if people have never been to Topeka, Kansas, and they hear me say, "Man, I've had some of the best tacos of my life in Topeka," they would say, "Yeah, whatever." And I say, "Man, you got to know where to look."
Yep. Yeah, I know the places. No, I had no problem with Salt Lake City. I thought it was a good time. If you are going to just get like smashed, maybe don't. That might not be the place to go.
Salt Lake City, BYOB. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. The arena's nice though. I don't know what they changed the name again. Is it the Delta Center again?
I think it is the Delta Center.
I believe
again.
they changed it. At the time, it was the Vivint Smart Home Arena, which is a dumb name. Sorry, Vivint Smart Homes.
Yeah, it did. It changed back to the Delta Center.
Good for them. Jazz are back. It's a nice arena, nice media area. That is where famously, I got yelled at by Lindsay Schnell of USA Today.
You are being extremely loud. The most, not even passive-aggressive, aggressive note that she dropped you while you were doing a live on-air radio hit.
Goes down in 580 Sports Talk lore for all time. The picture of that letter is still my header on Twitter. God, the worst. Thanks to our pal Scott Chasen, by the way, who's now an editor at the KC Star, for finding out who it was.
I just looked at your header.
Yeah. Have you heard this story?
No.
Oh,
that's why I looked at your header to see what you were referring.
Okay, real quick, in case you were actually tuning in to hear us talk about sports here, we're going to get to the Big 12 tournament in just a moment. Matt Derrick's going to join us bottom of the hour. Hit us up, Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. Also go to YouTube, watch the video stream of the show. Comment section's open, been rolling all day. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. So I went to Salt Lake City in 2019 for the NCAA tournament.
Yes.
And because KU had gone out there, that was the Diedrich Lawson year. KU kind of disappointing.
They lost by 1 billion points to Auburn this thing around.
Oh, God, it was awful. I picked KU to beat Auburn, by the way, on the show.
Oh, I did too, I think.
Yeah, it didn't go so well. That was after they knocked off Vaza Pushitsa and the Northeastern Huskies in the first round. I'll remember Vaza Pushitsa my rest of my life. So I am sitting in the radio work area. There is a sign. They kind of had to just partition it off with like cloth drapes, essentially, to split up the media room. The bowels of the Delta Center, very large, very expansive. So they just had these drapes to separate the print work area from the radio work area. I was against the back wall of the radio work area, like leaning in my chair against the bricks behind me. And it's 5:45, I think, Central Time. I call in and I'm talking to Dan and to Jake Laban to just do a real quick hit. They're like, hey, call in, last segment of the show. We'll get your take and, tell us about Salt Lake City and everything. Tell us how the week's been. So I'm there, and I'm not talking that loudly. I project. You guys hear me every day. Like, right. Even off the air, I project. You really can't turn it off at some point.
Like, if this is, like, your normal, you were at, like, a click below on the dial.
Yeah. Like,
you were being respectful, but you were still, like, doing radio and sounded like you were on live radio talking to Jake and I.
Again, in the radio work area.
In the exact area you're supposed to be in.
Yes, with no one else around because most people had cleared out. All the practices were done and everything. I was alone against the back wall. I'm giving my take on the show. And this woman from the print area walks over with a piece of paper, and she doesn't look at me in the eyes. She doesn't look in my area. She just walks toward the sound of my voice like she was on a mission, throws this piece of paper down in front of me while talking to Dan and Jake, and I pick it up and it just says, you are talking extremely underlined loud. And as I've said many times since then, 1, radio work area. 2, you are a professional print journalist. You should know how to use an adverb. The correct sentence would be loudly. You are describing the verb, not the noun. Lindsay. So Scott and Nick Schwartz, who used to do radio in Lawrence, they witnessed all of this happening. And they went and found who this was and reported back to me, like, who this woman was who did this. And then I had to use my Vern Lundquist at the Masters voice for the rest of the segment because now I was scared of someone else coming over and berating me.
Did you notice this on the air, Dan?
Oh yeah, no, he.
I did the play-by-play of it on the air.
Yeah, he told us. I just got a note here that I need to be quiet.
So embarrassed.
No, man, it was really, really funny.
I was really embarrassed, but also really PO'd. I'm working.
Got to go back and see if we have that episode.
I am doing my job. I imagine we have it saved.
I bet it's somewhere.
Somewhere in the greatest hits folder.
One last fun fact about the Delta Center, nay Vivint Smart Home Arena, nay Energy Solutions Arena. Energy Solutions was a low-level nuclear waste disposal company that had the naming rights to the arena for 10 years. Fans referred to it during that time as Jazz Mat, Radium Stadium, and
Radium Stadium rules.
My personal favorite, Chernobyl.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good.
Anyway, apropos of nothing, this is how we put off talking about whatever that was from K-State in the second half last night.
Yeah, that stunk. But here's the thing. Like, what happened and how K-State lost should not be a surprise to anyone. K-State turned the ball over 20 times, leading to 23 Iowa State points. And I know
could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been worse. And I know you end up losing by 19. You can't even say, like, we'll take away every turnover. That's not how basketball works. But it's a much different game, and it totally restructures the tempo of the game, the play of the game, the pace of the game. If you cut even 5 or 6 of those turnovers out. I mean, you turn it over 14 times against a good Iowa State defense. That's nothing to hang your head about. I mean, it's a good defense. But 20 times in a do-or-die game, you have to win to make the NCAA tournament.
And it wasn't just the 20 turnovers. It said 11 of them were in the second half, and that 6 of them were in a 5-minute span where you had gotten the game within a point. Like, the game is on a nice edge at this point with about to the first media timeout, right? They'd eaten up the deficit. They were down 7 going into the break, and they'd already closed within 1, and it looked like Arthur Kaluma was finding a groove. And I really thought the game was pretty finely poised at that point. Like, it could have gone either way. And then K-State turns the ball over. I mean, you have 6 empty possessions in a 5-minute span, and all of a sudden that lead is 13 after the and one by Lipsy going into the under 12 media timeout. And it's kind of beyond you at that point because K-State doesn't shoot the 3 well enough to come back from a big second half deficit like that. Like, they needed to have the whole half to come back from double digits down against Texas. Half the half down double digits, that's a really tall order for this particular team, and it turned out they didn't have it in them. Iowa State made it really hard for K-State to score because that's what they do. They make it really, really hard for you to score. They trap. They do not, I pointed this out on the reaction video last night, they don't respect Kansas State's bigs as offensive threats. They say, oh, you're gonna screen and roll with Will McNair and Earl Colbert. We're not going to guard those guys on the roll because if they even catch it, what are they going to do with it? Like, that's clear in how Iowa State has defended. And when K-State did beat Iowa State, who played well? David Gasson. Who played well? Will McNair. Those guys didn't play well last night. Iowa State decided their defensive strategy was, we are going to hound the small guards and try and force them into bad, risky passes because we don't think, even if Will McNair or Jarrell Colbert or David Gasson is rolling down the middle of the floor wide open toward the basket, we still don't think they can hurt us. We think we can rotate over and make them make a mistake, or that they'll drop the ball, or that they won't finish around the basket. And that was a workable strategy defensively last night for Iowa State, who just defended hard, and they forced turnovers. That's what they do. I mean, that's how they've won games all year. They're not a particularly outstanding offensive team. They only made 1 3-pointer last night.
Yeah, 1 for 14.
But they scored 23 points off of turnovers. And that was such a huge factor for Kansas State the night before against Texas. That's what allowed them to make that comeback. Was Texas only got 2 points off turnovers in the second half. When you're not letting a team run off of live ball turnovers, that means you're defending them in the half court. And Kansas State, a top 20 defensive team in the country, can get their share of stops, can make it tough for you to score in the half court, and you can grind the game out a little bit, turn it into a slog. Most Iowa State games are, but with Kansas State, they defend well enough that they're capable of competing in a game like that. But when you give away 20 turnovers and 23 points result from that, that's too big a margin to overcome, because you know what Iowa State didn't do last night? Turn the ball over. Only 6 turnovers for Iowa State. Lipsy and Gilbert, those guards, they had the game on a string, and Kansas State could not run and get the easy hoops at the other end that Iowa State was living on. And that ended up being a pretty big difference in the game.
One other thing that really stood out, and, you know, sometimes it's just a make or miss game, but normally when you say that, it's about what? 3-pointers, right?
Yeah.
And some teams make. BYU, perfect example of that. When they're hitting threes, they can beat absolutely any team in the country. When they are not, you get railroaded by Texas Tech, like they did in the quarterfinal round yesterday. Do you remember what K-State was on layups yesterday?
I sure do. They were 33%. They were 8 of 24.
The average, I looked this up. This is an old number, and shot making's gotten better since then. This is actually from an interview from 2015. So it's, 9 years old at this point. In Division I men's college basketball, the layup percentage nationally was, at the time, 55.3%. I would imagine that has gone up since this point in 2015. But even so, if you take that number, 55%, K-State makes 5 more layups. If they go 13 for 24, that's just under 55%. That suddenly, if you just apply that to the final score, all of a sudden it's a single-digit game. And all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, K-State was really in this game more. And again, that changes things like rebounds, runouts after rebounds, what happens on a second chance, what happens when you go one and done. Totally changes the complexion of the game if you make 5 more out of these 16 that you miss.
And there were some bad misses, too.
Awful.
Will McNair smoked an open layup. David Gasson had a tip-in that somehow didn't go in the second half. That yes. I still don't understand, like, the physics of how that shot didn't go in. Like, there were some bad misses around the rim. That was also, by the way, not the worst a team shot on layups in yesterday's Big 12 semi-quarterfinal games.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, TCU, what's up? TCU shot less than 20%.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in the 4 o'clock hour. It's been kind of an ugly tournament in general.
Yeah. It was very much yesterday a ball will not go into basket sort of affair for most teams. The teams that lost, you could look at the shooting numbers, look at their layup numbers, look at their 3-point numbers and go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's obviously why they did win. But it's the same problems for this Kansas State team and the same problems stemming from the same roster building issues that they've never gotten true point guard play all year long. And so you have these swings where, hey, when it looks good, when they don't turn the ball over, they run some pretty good offense, they score enough, they get enough stops, they can beat a good team. Mm-hmm. Their list of wins, their collection of wins. And Jerome Tang was all too happy to talk about this in the postgame press conference.
3-minute rant. 3 minutes and 7 seconds, I think, when you pull out just him talking about their resume.
Genuinely impressive wins for Kansas State. I believe, and I am pulling it up here. I want to make sure that I get it exactly right. I may have to wander through the cesspool that was my Twitter mentions from last night. But, yeah, don't worry. Don't
get on the wrong side of Iowa State fans.
Leave Iowa State fans alone.
Caleb Grill's not even there anymore.
Yeah, no kidding. It wasn't. If it had only been his mom, that would have been fine. I could have handled that. That's a lot.
That would be nothing new.
It's a lot of people who were using language they probably don't use around their mothers. Anyway, I can't find the number, but I think Kansas State had something like 5 wins against the top 25 teams in the net, something like that. They have the most wins of any team when it comes to playing like the best of the best teams in the net rankings. I can find it's 6 against the top 40, 6 top 40 net wins for the Wildcats and 5 quad 1 wins. That's great. Like that shows you when things go right that this Kansas State team is capable of beating some really good competition. And that's the argument for putting Kansas State in the tournament. And they would not be the most shocking at-large team I've ever seen make the tournament.
No, that's true.
2021 Syracuse, how you doing? There have been others. But you're also not just your wins. Like it's a full body of work. We don't just get to discuss your wins without discussing the losses, which, by the way, 14 is a lot. That's a lot of losses for an NCAA tournament.
Tons of them. Yeah.
And
frankly, probably too many.
And granted, some of those losses back in November and December looked like they were going to be losses that weren't that bad. Like if you have a bunch of quad 1 losses, that's one thing. But those games against USC and Miami end up being quad 2 instead of quad 1. And that hurts your resume. You lost to teams ended up being bad.
Yeah.
You lost to a Nebraska team that I guess they're going to get in the tournament, but like you lost at home to a team that didn't beat anybody on the road in Big 12 play.
But Dan, they had no quad 3 or 4 losses.
They have 1 quad 3 loss.
I mean, 1 quad.
Did they
loss.
end up with a quad 3 loss?
They did end up with a quad 3 loss. That was Miami. I lied. Yeah, Miami ended up with a quad 3 loss.
Yeah.
So Ryan Gilbert to Go Power Cat laid out the entire case. Like, I don't know how you define who a bubble team is, but K-State has the number 1 strength of schedule of any bubble team.
This is why this stuff drives CJ Moore. And this isn't a criticism of Ryan. I know why he's doing it, but this is why CJ Moore, who we had on the show yesterday, hates bubble talk.
Right. Only 3 of K-State's 14 losses are to teams that aren't going to make the tournament. They have more quad 1 wins than any team on the bubble. The best quad 1 winning percentage of any bubble team except for Texas A&M. They beat 3 top 10 teams or teams that were top 10 at the time of their win. And this is all stuff that Jerome Tang laid out. This is basically just the clip notes of Jerome Tang's argument. I respect him going to bat for his players.
Of course.
And
he wouldn't be doing his job if he was.
No. Like anybody ripping Tang for doing that, for having that all ready to go to make his team's case. That's what you have to do.
Yes.
Like you said it exactly right. He wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't doing that. But man, I don't think the tournament should be letting in 19 and 14 teams, even if they are power 16.
Agreed.
It just 14 is a lot of losses. And look, man, some of those losses are not great. They lost to Oklahoma State. That's the other thing. Jerome Tang points out 9 Big 12 wins. 9 wins in the toughest league in the country. 8-10 in the regular season, 1-1 in the tournament. He went 9-11 against the Big 12. 9 wins in the Big 12 doesn't mean what it used to mean.
No.
And not because the league isn't still excellent. It's because of the unbalanced schedule. It used to be if you won 9 games, you knew who those 9 wins were against.
You very likely beat every team on your schedule.
Yes, and that does matter.
Or every team in the league, I should say.
That's why 9 has felt like a magic number for Big 12 teams over the course of things. But for K-State, 2 of their 9 wins came against West Virginia. What if, instead of playing West Virginia twice, they'd had to play Houston twice? Are they beating Houston either time?
No.
Are they beating Houston in Bramlage, in Kansas City, on the moon? No, they're not beating that.
I mean, maybe it's more competitive if it's in Manhattan, but there's not quite the same mystique. Sorry to cut you off, Spencer. Like, there's not quite the same mystique of Houston had to go to Allen Fieldhouse as Houston had to go to Bramlage Coliseum. And I'm not trying to put down K-State. I mean, that it is what it is. And no, they're not winning that game. They were so outmatched. I laid it out the last couple of days, and I know you guys were in the same boat too. Like, I don't see them getting in. I appreciate the fact that they played a lot better in the final, including the tournament, 7 games of the year. I appreciate that. I hope that's something for them to build on. It's just not a good enough resume. And the metrics aren't there. The quality lost. There aren't enough quality losses like there are. You can't lose to Oklahoma State, man. You just can't.
I think, too, had you won last night, gotten to the semifinals, had you lost, you had a legit, like, hey, maybe this is a possibility.
Because, again, you can argue, we just beat Iowa State again. That's top 10 team.
Twice in a week.
Yeah, I agree with you. You would have had a better argument.
The argument now, I mean, you get really blown out, 19-point loss in that one. I don't know how you argue. Yeah. I mean, Tang's got to do what Tang does. And said you have to step up for your team,
right?
And do that, but like legitimately, no shot.
Well, we have a texter. I'm assuming this is a K-State fan. Texter on the Top City Mills like text line from 785 points out that the USC and Miami teams that K-State lost to early in the year, both on neutral floors. They were both top 25 ranked teams then. I don't even matter if you were ranked in November and December. The November and December polls are just guesses.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important, because I understand that line of thinking. I do. Like, at the time, we thought they were top 25 teams. That's true.
No,
but the AP poll is not a factor for the committee. The tournament committee has a list of things that it includes. It actually does include KenPom. It includes the net ranking. That's heavily weighted. It includes the factor, the KPI, which if you haven't heard of that, you're not alone in that. It takes a number of things into account. The AP poll or the coaches poll are not included in that, though. So while it looks, on the outside, like, well, that was at the time considered a good win, the things that the committee actually looks at, that's not one of the factors.
The texter also points out that KU's got some bad losses, too. They lost on the road to West Virginia UCF, and they're still going to make the tournament. Yeah, they went 21-10, did 13 quad 1 and quad 2 wins, and the metrics all like them a lot better because
and beat Houston and beat Connecticut and beat Tennessee and beat Kentucky.
Right. And yeah, that list of wins is better than the list of K-State's 4 best wins. K-State, quad 1, quad 2, they went 9-13. KU went 13-9 against the 22 best teams that they played. KU was 4 games better, and they split with each other.
And KU did lose those games.
Yes.
It lost to UCF on the road and lost to a terrible West Virginia team on the road. And got their ass kicked by Houston at the Fertitta Center. All those things are true, and KU is going to pay the price for that. And they're going to
be a number 4 seed, maybe.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. And you might say, oh, wow, a 5 seed. Wow, how boo-hoo. No, but for real, like that, with all of those good wins and 21 overall wins, you wouldn't think 5, but KU is going to pay the price for those, and you should pay the price for losses like that, and for bad vibes that should hurt you.
MPM in the YouTube chat argues no way KU beats Tennessee or Kentucky today. What month are we in?
March.
Rick Barnes in March. I wouldn't I wouldn't bet on him beating anybody in March. They just lost today.
Mississippi State blasted by Mississippi State. Kentucky, maybe. I don't know if KU can keep up scoring like that. In fact, without Dickinson and McCullough, they almost certainly could.
Without Dickinson and McCullough, I'm not sure KU beats Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee.
I mean, they got better chances than Cincinnati does making the tournament. I know that much for certain. We do have to get to a break here. Coming up, we'll talk more Big 12 basketball in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll get to On Second Thought and Derrick still coming up this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, real quick on second thought before we get to Matt Derrick. I thought Iowa State would not be good this year. I think I said they were going to finish like 9th in the Big 12. I was wrong.
I believe Kansas State would be a tournament team. After that win at LSU, I really thought they were going to kind of round into form.
Yeah, me too.
Once they got into the meat grinder of the Big 12, their lack of real, true lead guard, creating guard play really hurt them. They were close. They had so many close losses this year.
Yeah.
One of those goes in the other direction right now as it stands. I would argue that K-State might be a tournament team.
Might be.
Ifs and buts, right?
I told Dan, I don't know if it was on the way to yesterday or on the way from in the wee hours of the morning on the other night when we were coming back, that Baylor was going to blow out Cincinnati and that it was going to be a bloodbath of a game. And I was sorely wrong.
Cincinnati put up a fight. They give
really
Bearcats credit.
did.
Lost, but I'll give them credit. Matt Derrick joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, where we talk to our good pal Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joining us via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Go find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Find his work at ChiefsDigest.com. Matt, was Hollywood Brown on your radar as a possible new Kansas City Chief before yesterday?
Yeah, he was on the radar. I thought that with the first few deals that were getting done with the free agent receivers, I didn't think he'd be in the Chiefs price point. But that was a contract that kind of surprised me. But him being on the Chiefs radar didn't surprise me. But I think it's a pretty good deal for both him and the Chiefs if it works out the way they want.
And I was going to say, too, I mean, we talked about this earlier on the show, Matt, if you're getting a real contributor for $7 million plus incentives, I mean, it's hard to beat a bargain like that on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver with how that's becoming a premium position across the NFL. I like the fact that he brings something to the table that the Chiefs didn't have before. He's a really good zone beater, and he's got breakaway speed, which the Chiefs don't really have really anywhere on the offense right now, but especially at wide receiver. Is that what you like the best about him, or what really intrigues you the most about this signing in terms of what you get with Hollywood Brown?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things, and you hit some of them right there, which is that absolutely, he's got speed that the Chiefs and with other skills. I mean, the Chiefs have had some fast receivers in the room last year, but nothing I don't think quite like him. I don't think even McColl's probably quite as fast and quick as Hollywood is. I mean, if you look at I think the number of 20-mile-per-hour plus speeds have been posted on Next Gen Stats. Marquise is just behind. The only one he's behind is Tyreek. Now Tyreek's way ahead of everybody, but that puts him in an elite category. But he is a well-rounded receiver. He can play all three spots. He can move around the inside and outside, so you don't have to lock him in one place. Yeah, he will probably be on the outside most of the time. He can take up the top of the field. You feel pretty good about the deep ball connection, that he can give you something in that game and kind of help the Chiefs get out of the rut they were in last year. Mahomes has been so good at throwing the ball down deep, and then last year was just absolutely a disaster. You've got to think that he can help out with that. So, yeah, it's not just one thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that he can do, and you look at his career, and even in Arizona, he didn't get to play very much with Kyler. Kyler was hurt most of the time. When he did get to play with Murray, he was really good. Put up 1,000 yards in a West Coast style offense in Baltimore. Maybe it wasn't his cup of tea because they didn't throw the ball enough, but they're going to throw the ball around plenty in Kansas City, so he should get his opportunity.
The Chiefs now have their number one in Rashee Rice. We're talking specifically receivers. Obviously, Travis Kelce is still there too. But their number one wide receiver in Rashee Rice. You bring in Hollywood Brown, that adds something. You've got your depth with, I would say, Justin Watson is your next best depth piece. But, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney are technically still there for now. Do you still think the Chiefs will use a draft pick in maybe even the first round, but certainly within the first 2 days on a wide receiver?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's going to be a little bit about just how the draft falls and where they're at, because that's the one thing that Brett Veach has once again set this team up for really well. They don't have to go out and get any one particular position. They're not in the spot that you say, hey, if we don't get out of the first round or you don't get out of the first 2 days of the draft with a player at this position, that they're just absolutely in trouble. They're an ability to pick the best available player, and if a player of substance, a position that they like, falls, they can go get them. But you don't say to yourself, hey, this team absolutely has to come out of the first round with a tackle. This team needs to come out of day 2 with a receiver. They can pick and choose. They can maneuver around the board. They can just wait and see where the pockets are. So, if I expect that they will probably come out with a receiver, because I think that most years they are going to draft a receiver to get the chance. But they don't have to force it. So if there's not a player there that they don't like at that particular spot, they can pass and go elsewhere.
Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He's our Chiefs insider on 580 Sports Talk. Joins us every Friday at this time. You can again check out his work at ChiefsDigest.com. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, do you think the Chiefs are done shopping from outside the building for wide receivers, or would you expect maybe another veteran low-cost addition at the position?
I still think a low-cost veteran addition they might make. There's a few players out there I think would be a good fit. Mike Williams, I think, is obviously the biggest name to watch. He's a guy that, at this point in his career, I mean, I think you could use him a little bit more sparingly. He doesn't have to be a starting receiver. It depends on how much money he wants, but I think that, once again, he's got a skill set that the Chiefs really need, a big-bodied receiver who can work underneath. He can work in a lot of different places. You can move him around. But he's also just somebody that, the Chiefs have seen before. You can throw the ball at him, he's going to go get it. The ACL is an issue coming off of last year, which is why, you would hope that it wouldn't be a costly deal. I wouldn't want the Chiefs to make a big investment or a lot of guaranteed money, but I think he's a possibility. Internally, hey, McCool Hardman coming back is still a possibility as well. I don't think that's out of the realm of question. And there might be a few others that they could kick the tires on. I mean, obviously last year they saw Richie James was out there late, liked him enough to bring him in. So there could still be some moves, but I would not be surprised if they wanted to add just one more veteran to that group.
The Chiefs have also made some moves to essentially return their defensive tackle rotation intact. Kirk Wharton, Mike Pennell, all coming back, and Derrick Nnadi late last night becoming the most recent Chiefs defensive tackle to re-up with the team. Do you like the Chiefs' decision to keep that position group, along with obviously the Chris Jones extension, keep that group intact?
Yeah, I think there's a series of good circumstances that allowed them to do it. Kirk Wharton coming off the ACL injury, I thought was really good last year, but he didn't play as many snaps, so that might be something that held some teams back. Just wondering, hey, this is a small college guy. You wonder if how much more does he have in him in his career? I think he's got some juice left, so maybe that was a circumstance about why there wasn't a big market for him, and the Chiefs were able to keep him on a relatively affordable deal. And then Derrick Nnadi has the injury at the end of the season in the tricep. So maybe some teams were scared off by that and didn't want to worry about the injury with Nnadi. So you got two guys that maybe had a little injury questions that teams might have just been concerned about. The Chiefs get to keep on an affordable price. And, Mike Pennell, I think absolutely, he wants to play for a winner. There's no doubt about that. So keeping him in Kansas City, I think, is pretty easy. And he might be a guy that, the plan is just to go ahead, know that you're going to stash him on the practice squad, and at a point during the season, you're going to bring him in and have some fresh legs. I say fresh legs for a guy who's going to be 34 next year. I don't know if Mike's ready for a 17-game season plus 4 playoff games or anything like that, but he can definitely help you late in the year. And obviously, getting Chris Jones done was a no-brainer. That's the guy that you had to keep.
And Matt, speaking of the offensive line, obviously you bring Chris Jones back, but a guy that you kind of think would have at least had some offers, maybe signed by now, if not back to the Chiefs, was Mike Dana. He's still out on the open market. Do you think that he could come back to this team?
Yeah, it's definitely a distinct possibility. Chiefs, for the most part, wasn't anybody that was a free agent that they weren't talking to in some form. There was a couple of guys I think they felt like just weren't going to get more than they wanted on the open market. The one that probably was a little bit surprised was Willie Gay, but I think the Chiefs, that was a situation where the Chiefs decided they were going to go a different direction, and I think Willie wanted a fresh start elsewhere, since he maybe wasn't going to get the playing time that he wanted in Kansas City. But everybody else, I think, is pretty free. I've been a little bit surprised that the Mike Dana market hasn't been a little bit better for him. There's still some decent names out there too, so that might be an issue as far as trying to find a good spot. There's guys like Emmanuel Ogba and Randy Gregory are still out there, and Ngakwe, Chase Young, I guess, is still technically out there, but there's some players that are still at that spot. So Dana was a guy I thought that if he didn't go immediately, might be one of those guys that hangs around until the end. When the team kind of in the Drew Tranquil phase, they're all like, wait a minute, Mike Dana's still available? That's the guy we need to go get. I don't know if the Chiefs will let him go that far, though. If his price point comes down and his asking point comes down to where the Chiefs are comfortable and can afford him, then I think there's a big chance that he's back in Kansas City.
And another guy that is still out there on the open market is safety Mike Edwards. They bring back Deion Bush. Do you think Mike Edwards comes back, or do you think he goes elsewhere now that the safety market is kind of starting to see more guys sign?
Yeah, Mike's had kind of bad luck in free agency the last couple of years. Last year I think he just kind of got overlooked, and this year there's just so many safeties out there on the market, and so and there's still some guys unsigned. So I think it's going to be tough. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just another late signing. Maybe gets closer to the draft, maybe even after the draft, when and that was something that I know, talking to the Chiefs' wife, a little surprised that they have kind of maybe accelerated the plan on keeping their own free agents. I think a little bit it was just that the prices came down, but the original thought was, hey, wait and see after the draft who you've gotten, and if there are still some guys that you want to bring back, maybe they're still available. So I don't know. I think that Mike Dana is still around after the draft for sure. I think the Chiefs would bring him back. Edwards, I think the same way. But I also know, hey, Mike Edwards knows that he doesn't have a whole lot of opportunities to get a longer-term deal and maybe get some more money in his career. So he's looking probably for the best value deal out there for him. And I don't know that will be in Kansas City. So we'll see if somebody else comes along and offers him. But he's got a couple of rings now, so he might have more interest in getting paid than he does getting the ring.
Last few questions for Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, joining us for our Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk. You can go follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and you can find his great work at ChiefsDigest.com as well. Don't forget to follow Matt on YouTube. Go subscribe on YouTube to the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel. Matt, Irv Smith, do you think he wears a 34 long gold jacket, or are we thinking just size him up to a 36?
Good question. I think he's probably call 34 long. So there you go. Hey, Irv's an interesting player. He is a little undersized for the tight end position. And Brett Veach has been, he kind of is in love with trying to find one of these versatile, 6'3" tight ends that can just play a little bit of everywhere. Cross is one of those guys, or Smith is one of those guys. He can play in any different position. H-back, backfield, fullback, tight end. Very athletic. I mean, I think he's more athletic than Noah Gray, so I think there's a few different things you can do with him. Really interested to see if they feel like that that's a guy that they can put on the field instead of Travis and put him and Gray out there at the same time in some 12 personnel just to give Travis a break, or, if they are still going to be looking for maybe another tight end. Jody Fortson left, so if the Chiefs wanted to go with 4 tight ends, they've still got some possibilities out there, and so that didn't preclude them maybe even drafting a tight end. We'll see, but he gives them something I'm not sure that they've had the last few years at that position, because he's pretty quick. I mean, he's got some speed, he's got some athleticism, he's got some of that same maybe juice that Jody Fortson had, just maybe not quite the size. So, but I know he's been effective in the red zone too. So I think it's really interesting acquisition. It should fit in well with his offense.
The L'Jarius Sneed market. There was some reporting earlier today from Stephen Holder of ESPN. We got that earlier, that right now the thing holding up a trade for L'Jarius Sneed is not the Chiefs. And his wording was even that the Chiefs are being reasonable, which is about as generous as I've ever seen in reporting about a trade. But said right now the hangup is just getting a new deal done with L'Jarius Sneed. Have you heard similar things, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, the on the two sides of it, on the compensation side, the rumors and the scuttlebutt have been kind of everywhere. I mean, there's been some that the Chiefs wanted a first-round pick and think that they can get that, even if they had to kick in something else along with L'Jarius to get that. I've never felt like a first-round pick was on the board, and I think that the Chiefs have been fairly realistic in their vision, and that if they were able to get a top 50 pick back for L'Jarius Sneed, I think they feel pretty good about that. So if it was even an early second, I think that's great return. And if they got anything in addition to that, this is gravy. Now, if it's a later second pick, I think you would need to get a 5th or a 6th back too to feel good about it. So if that's where the Chiefs are in compensation, I mean, that's the going rate. I mean, that's kind of what other guys have been going for. So I think that's where you have to be in the compensation. It's just, is L'Jarius getting the deal that he wants? And that's what I'm just not sure about. The understanding and thought was that L'Jarius was looking for top of the market, money at corner, which would be similar to what Jalen Johnson signed with the Bears, something like $70, $75 million in that price range for 4 years. With his age at 27 and with the knee issue, it just feels like that there's not teams willing to go that far for him. So maybe that instead of 3 years, instead of 19 million a year, maybe it's closer to 15, and then now all of a sudden you're closer to where maybe the Chiefs are comfortable with giving L'Jarius that kind of money. So yeah, I definitely think that it's more on the speed side of the equation. That he by all accounts still really wants to stay in Kansas City. So if there's a way to make that happen, he may be trying to figure out a way to make that happen. One way to make that happen is just not being able to make a deal with anybody else.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. That's where you can find all of his great work covering the Super Bowl champs. Find the Chiefs Digest YouTube as well. Go subscribe over there and find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He joins us every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider. As always, Matt, we appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Always a blast. Take care, everybody.
That is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. Don't forget that coming up next Tuesday, getting ready for the opening 4 play-in games of the Men's College Basketball National Championship Tournament, we will be at Prairie Band Sportsbook at the Prairie Band Casino in Mayetta. Full show leading you into the first of the play-in games coming up on Tuesday. And for the first 25 people who come to Prairie Band Sportsbook during the show, anytime from 2 until the end of the show that day before the games begin, all you have to do is go to the counter and say Parlay Your Way as part of the Parlay Your Way promotion, and you get a $10 free bet. Plus, the Parlay Your Way promotion is going on. Register a qualifying $5 or more parlay, 4 legs or more, and you can be entered to win tickets to Royals opening day. That's between now and the end of the week. Tomorrow, that drawing will be held. Or after that, tickets to Inter Miami versus Sporting Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. That entry will begin starting next week if you enter the Parlay Your Way promotion and submit a qualifying bet. That's at the Prairie Band Sportsbook. We will be there coming up next week on Tuesday right here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got to get to a break. Coming up to lead off the 4 o'clock hour of the show. However, lots of news around the NFL today. We'll get to all of it coming up on 580 Sports Talk. 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Spencer Dupuis. That's Dan Lucero. Curveball. I went backwards on you guys that time. Usually it's Dan first. Let's keep you on your toes. With this 580 Sports Talk, we're here till 5:30 today. We've got K-State baseball coming up at 5:30. So we're out of here just a half an hour early. Coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour of the show today, we've got the latest from a very busy day around the NFL. Also talk some Big 12 basketball tournament, and we've got what is wrong with you for today. Plus, your comments on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel and of the show on YouTube. And, of course, you can hit us up as well on the Top City Metal Supply text line. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut exact lengths of aluminum, steel, or stainless steel, tailored exactly to what? That's right, your project's specifications. So start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field here in the capital city.
We got breaking NFL quarterback news.
Oh?
More? The Rams are signing Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh. That's pretty funny.
That's very underwhelming.
I think that's the title of Jimmy Garoppolo's career highlight reel.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan, first time he actually saw him at practice. That's underwhelming. Same with the Raiders. Now same with,
I couldn't tell you who the Rams' backup quarterback was last year, so presumably that is the role he will serve once he is done serving his 2-game PED suspension.
That's very funny.
Who was the Rams' backup quarterback?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Didn't Wentz?
Wentz ended up there at one
Wentz
point.
Played week 17 or week 18 when they rested the starters. They already knew they were in the playoffs, so yeah, I guess it was him.
But he signed like the week before.
Wentz and Garoppolo is very, like, I want to see those two. I want a reality show. I want to see, like, those two hang out.
They drafted Stetson Bennett last year,
Yeah,
and then he just sort of disappeared.
They put him on some list because he's got stuff going on in his life.
Yeah, I think they put him on the NFI list, the non-football injury. Plenty of rumors, but yeah, they had a problem with their backup quarterback all year long. No, you know who they played? Because he played against Green Bay. And he just signed with the Bears, I believe. You should know. His uncle won a Super Bowl with your favorite team.
Oh, Brett Rippon.
Brett Rippon should never be allowed to touch a football. I'm not saying play. He should not be allowed to touch a football.
He's definitely made that family name not be as
yeah.
great as it once was.
The shine has really waned on the Rippon name. God, he's bad. Yeah, that's who they had to start at quarterback for a game or two last year. Dan, before we get to the NFL, though, our pal Jay Hawker on YouTube says, I see Dan doesn't think much of the Iowa State fan base. I agree with him.
Hey.
Would you like to reference or mention or discuss at all what Jay Hawker's talking about here?
I don't know if this is what he's talking about.
I don't know. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it does somewhere.
So last night I expressed the opinion on Twitter.
Correct opinion, by the way. Let's make that clear.
I am known to express opinions. That is what I do, like, for 4 hours a day as part of my job, and I do it quite frequently on the Bird app. It will never be the X app to me. It will always be the Bird app.
Always the Bird app.
It's still the Bird on my phone. It's very important to me that it remains the Bird.
I think I showed this before. I use the Shortcuts app to make sure that it is still, in fact, the Bird app on my phone.
We appreciate that. I shared an opinion on the Bird app last night. It is an opinion that I have shared on this show. It will not be an unfamiliar opinion to those of you who are familiar with me. And the opinion is that I don't like to watch Iowa State play basketball. And it is not a personal feeling. It is not a necessarily permanent feeling. There have been many times where I have not really liked watching a certain team play or a certain style of basketball. Longtime listeners will know I'm not much of a Virginia basketball fan. I don't have nice things to say about watching Wisconsin basketball. When Chris Beard was the head coach at Texas Tech, I didn't particularly like those Texas Tech teams. Didn't know Chris Beard was a alleged not good guy, but I didn't like watching his teams play, and I don't like watching TJ Otzelberger's teams play. And I've talked about why. I've expressed why. Anyway, I expressed that opinion on Twitter last night, and as Iowa State was pulling away in the second half from Kansas State, some enterprising Cyclones fans found that opinion on the Bird app and proceeded to tell me all kinds of interesting things about my parentage, about what I could do sexually to myself, all kinds of things that I am only hearing about secondhand. Because if you don't think I muted that conversation immediately, you don't know ball. Because
I will tell you, there was one person that was with you.
Yes, there was one person
that was an Iowa State fan.
You told me who commented and said, "Yeah, I'm an Iowa State fan. I don't like watching them play either." It's strictly aesthetic. It's not personal. I will not always feel this way about Iowa State basketball. I have not always felt this way about Iowa State basketball.
Those Fred Hoiberg teams were fun.
I loved Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
What a baller. I really loved watching him play at Iowa State. So this is not a personal thing. But, of course, you know, if you're a member of, like, Be True to Your School Twitter, you take it real personally. And, yeah, some people may have taken it personally. So prior to last night, I really didn't have much beef with the Iowa State fans. I respect their passion. I love how loud Hilton Coliseum gets. It's a great environment. I love that they come up and they try to take over T-Mobile Center for the Big 12 tournament. I respect the hell out of that. They were loud. They were having a great time last night. They're going to be loud again tonight out there in Kansas City. But now there are a few Iowa State fans who are crossways with me. I can't say I blame them. But no, if I have a problem with Iowa State, it's just the way they play. I haven't liked watching them play. It's not new to this year, but the Keyshawn Gilbert experience is one I'm looking forward to being over with.
I will translate for you guys. If you wanted to take the Iowa State fan tweets and turn them into verbal words, I will translate them for you. Boo!
Yes. I was roundly booed.
Boo!
Roundly and explicitly booed.
God. Jeffrey mentions the same thing on the YouTube comments. It's just
the Jayhawker post that Iowa State thinks the Big 12 tournament is the Final Four. How would they know what a Final Four looks like for Jayhawker? Would be my response. How would they know? How
they think it looks like Kansas City and a trip to Johnny's after.
What would they know? What would they know about a Final Four? This is the only Final Four they ever make. The Final Four of the Big 12 conference.
I respect their passion for it. Boo! I will leave it at that. Boo!
It's every time their team gets called for a foul.
They watch KU play in one. There you go.
It is. Yeah, this is true. Do you know the only time Iowa State has ever been to a Final Four?
I honestly don't.
1944. That does not count. Do you know how many Elite Eights Iowa State has been to in history?
One.
No. 1944, when I think there were only like 8 teams in the tournament.
Yep.
And then 2000. Shout out to Larry State.
Was Marcus Pfizer on that team? Was that post Marcus Pfizer?
No, that was Pfizer. I don't know if Tinsley was on that team. Jamal Tinsley. No, that was the Pfizer team. That was pretty outstanding in 2000. They were 2 seed that year and lost to Michigan State. So that's what has to happen. Like the last time Iowa State went to an Elite Eight was the last time the Big Ten had a championship caliber team in their conference.
Which ends first, Grey's Anatomy or Iowa State's Elite Eight drought?
Tinsley was on that team. By the way, Iowa State was the number 2 seed the very next year, and they lost to Hampton.
Yeah,
Hampton in the first round.
Great memory.
Shout out! Oh God, what was the Hampton coach? He ended up coaching at Indiana State. Murfeld, Steve Murfeld, was it something like that?
I'm about to find it for you. Give me one moment. We will get to the NBA in a moment, I promise. But Hampton Pirates basketball, 2001. That was, oh, come on. Why is this so difficult to find sometimes?
Steve Murfeld.
There you go.
Boom.
Well done. Good memory.
Elephant never forgets.
Do you know how many times Hampton's been to the NCAA tournament?
Not a lot. I'm going to say 6 times.
You are correct. 6 times.
There you go.
6 more than Iowa State has Final Four in the post-World War II era.
In the non-peak basket era. Yeah, so that's why they get so hyped for the Big 12 tournament. They typically don't have to travel for the regions.
Apparently, Kelly's in Westport is the place to go for Iowa State fans.
Hang out. I am definitely persona non grata at Kelly's in Westport. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, God. All right, we'll get to more Big 12 basketball later on in the hour. Did want to get some NFL news for today. There is a lot of it going on. Let's just whip through some of this. We talked a little bit about Aaron Donald earlier on in the show today. Aaron Donald retired.
Hours after it was announced that he restructured his contract.
Yeah, to free up, $9 million in cap space, I think. So it is kind of tough to say, and I can think of 2 examples of this in NFL history, that you would play 10 or fewer seasons and be regarded as maybe the greatest to ever play your position. Aaron Donald and Jim Brown.
Very few.
Very few. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Barry played exactly 10. So
how long did Walter played more than that?
In fact, Sanders and Donald, I saw this earlier today, they're the only players who play at least 10 NFL seasons being able to Pro Bowl in recent season.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Donald's credentials are incredible. 10 years, 10 Pro Bowls, 8 first-team All-Pros, 3 times Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, that's preposterous. That's really freaking incredible. And he's one of the greatest defensive players I've ever seen. We've seen great ones. I mean, we've seen Darrelle Revis was awesome for a while. He also fell apart. We remember when he was with the Chiefs. We remember the latter stages of his time with the Jets, even. There was a downturn at some point. Aaron Donald never had that. Aaron Donald's career was, and I know you're not a Seinfeld fan, his career was the ratings for Seinfeld. Seinfeld's final year, its 9th year on the air, was the most watched program on television. And then it went off the air. That final finale is terrible, though, by the way, for what it's worth. That's what Aaron Donald is. He was untouchable for 10 years. And when you had, it's like Tom Brady losing in a Super Bowl. The few times Aaron Donald was bested in his career, Packers Twitter today, Elton Jenkins in the playoffs in 2020 was better than Aaron Donald. Donald did not have a good day, or Elton Jenkins shut him down. Packers Twitter's blowing up with tweets like, Elton Jenkins, your son retired today. You're talking about that 4 years later. That's the kind of player Aaron Donald was. You can talk about greatness based on the times you had a down moment. How long after that do people still talk about it? That is a great measure of greatness.
Here's another measure of greatness. As somebody who has rooted for an NFC West team for the last 10 years, I have never thought any of the Seahawks guards were any good. Some of this is because they actually haven't been very good, but most of this is because twice a year I have to watch them try and block Aaron Donald and never succeed. Aaron Donald also injured Russell Wilson and Geno Smith in the last 3 seasons, not intentionally, but that was the inevitable conclusion that he was going to hurt one of those guys someday because of how much he lived in the backfield against the Seahawks and their typically porous interior lines. And eventually that did happen to both of Seattle's last 2 starting quarterbacks. So he will absolutely not be missed in the Pacific Northwest or by any Seahawks fan. I am I was saving a bottle of something nice for Aaron Donald's retirement.
Kind of crazy that in 2029, the Hall of Fame class will be headlined by an offensive and defensive lineman. Aaron Donald and Jason Kelce.
Oh, yeah. Both of them get in immediately.
100%.
Those are...
Just put them in.
Automatic.
There's I don't know if this is a true story or if it is apocryphal, but the story goes that the shortest debate for a Hall of Fame case in history was when famed Denver sports writer Woody Page stood up the first year that John Elway was a candidate and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, John Elway." And that was the case, and everybody voted yes, and he got in the Hall of Fame. Because, that's basically what the case for Aaron Donald and Jason Kelce is.
What's your
Ladies
argument?
and gentlemen, Aaron Donald and Jason Kelce.
What's the argument against it?
There isn't one.
Nope.
He got in a bar fight one time.
They both got rings.
Yes.
So you can't say, where were they in the postseason? Aaron Donald won that Super Bowl for the Rams.
Yeah,
correct. He won MVP.
Yeah.
Did he win? No, Cooper Kupp won MVP.
Yeah, I believe it was the Cup man, in fact, who won the MVP of that Super Bowl.
It should. Who did win it? Now I got to look this up. It was Cooper. I mean, Cooper Kupp was great. Over 100 yards receiving in the game. He was awesome. It should have been Aaron Donald, though. There's no argument about that. So congrats on a great career to Aaron Donald. Other news, guys who are active players. Let's start, because this one can go quicker, the funnier trade today. Kenny Pickett is going to the Eagles. The Eagles are giving the Steelers essentially a step. What is it? Are they moving back in the trade? they're giving up a couple of 7th-round picks, and they're moving back in the middle of the draft to get Kenny Pickett. That's it. They're moving back 22 spots to get Kenny Pickett, essentially, with 2 future 7th-rounders, next year 7th-rounders. By all accounts, Kenny Pickett has not really been a good teammate. In Pittsburgh.
That is what is starting to leak out.
There have been plenty of reports that when he was replaced by Mason Rudolph last year, he did not handle it well. And he said publicly, yeah, I'm fine with competition this year. Then they signed Russell Wilson, and apparently, according to reports, told the Steelers, get me out of here. Kenny, you average half a touchdown pass per game for your career.
It is so funny when Bucs make trade requests.
Yeah.
Like, you better trade me with pleasure.
I told you before last season started, I was going to become a Kenny Pickett guy.
Oh gosh.
Sometimes you make predictions and they don't work out.
Sometimes you swing and miss.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Even Tony Gwynn struck out once in a while. Yeah, that was a miss. That was yikes.
I could kind of see the vision. He got it. Like he had a couple of like impressive late game winning drives in his rookie year, and I see the vision a little bit. And then their offense was just a tire fire, and they fired Matt Canada, and that didn't fix it. It's not going to happen for Kenny Pickett. He certainly had a much better chance beating out Russell Wilson for a job than he does Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, get ready to learn clipboard, buddy.
And I'm sure, fine backup. He doesn't throw a ton of interceptions. He also doesn't throw touchdowns. He'll get you. You need to put him in at the end of a blowout. Oh, dominance. He'll be great in that role.
I'll tell you what, this trade makes me happy for Adam Peters, what he did with Sam Howell.
Did you get something valuable for him?
Yeah, for a guy that was a
2 pick swaps.
Yeah, multiple picks.
He has 6 picks in the top 100 now. And the guy was going to be a 3rd-string quarterback with almost no cap hit.
Well, more than anything, Howell was a 4th-round pick 2 years ago. Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick. The only first-round pick.
So the fact that he was able to get that haul for him, and you see what Pickett's getting, and then we saw what Mac Jones got, and if Justin Fields ever gets traded, who knows?
Yeah, Mac Jones got a 6. That was it. Last night, right before the Chiefs signed Hollywood Brown, the Chargers traded Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick. So let's start with the Bears because this is the easy part of this. Even though Allen is older, he's 32, even though he is injury prone at this part of his career, or has been, maybe not injury prone, he has dealt with injuries at this part of his career. He's going to be number 2 for the Bears, and you give up a 4th-round pick for him, and you're trying to help out Caleb Williams. That's a great trade for the Bears. I hate to say it, I think that's a great trade for the Bears.
Yeah, that's a good bit of business for a team that's going to have a young quarterback. A rookie quarterback, and you've all of a sudden now in DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, you've given yourself weapons on either side of the field. Like, that's a genuinely good 1-2 punch at wide receiver. Cole Kmet came to his own at tight end. Yeah, that's a team with some weapons for a first-year quarterback to step in and play with.
Ryan Poles, their GM, formerly worked in the Chiefs front office, he's actually very good with trades. Like, he got DJ Moore as a throw-in, essentially, while also getting the number 1 pick for this year. Got Montez Sweat and extended him, and he immediately became the best defensive player on that team last year. And now you got Keenan Allen for a day 3 pick to be your number 2 receiver. Now, free agency, he's very bad. He also traded for, what's his name? Chase Claypool, who sucked and was a locker room cancer, but more good than bad. He's very bad at free agency, though. Like, wildly bad. He gave an off-ball linebacker market-setting value last year, and this year had to race to be the first one to give DeAndre Swift a contract, whose last 2 teams were more than willing to replace that guy in free agency, but, so be it. The Chargers. I think you can argue the worst part of this is the fact that everyone thought Allen would play there forever. He loved the Chargers. They loved him, theoretically. He's been banged up. He's going into he's approaching his mid-30s. He'll again be 32. He was only going to be under contract 1 more year anyway. But now you have no one. I mean, you're throwing to Josh Palmer. That's your best receiver right now.
So they had the 4 big cap hits, right? They had their 2 edge rushers, Mack and Bosa. They had the 2 wide receivers, Williams and Allen. And I think most people just kind of assumed they'll move off of a wide receiver and they'll move off of a edge rusher. was very surprising to see that they restructured both edge rushers and they got rid of both wide receivers. Surprising that is, until you remember who's coaching the Los Angeles Chargers.
Who would that be?
That would be Jim Harbaugh.
Who's his offensive coordinator?
Greg Roman.
Yeah, that tells you all you need to know.
That would be Jim. I don't throw the ball unless I have to.
Jim, I ran the ball 22 consecutive times to end a Big Ten game last year, Harbaugh.
Yes. That's why, like, side note, the J.J. McCarthy discourse entering the draft, like, I don't pay much heed to the idea of, well, Michigan was scared of their quarterback and they wouldn't throw the ball with. No, like, have you seen Jim Harbaugh's movies? They ran the ball 23 consecutive times, whatever it was, not because they were afraid of J.J. McCarthy, but because that's what Michigan does.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, watch them take Blake Corum at number 5 overall pick.
It would be very funny.
It would be so funny.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them taking at some point.
No, but they're going to. I know.
They got to take a receiver at 5, right?
You would think. Like, they could get potentially Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I think the Cardinals are going to take a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, the top three picks are going to be quarterback.
I think the top 3, and then I think either the Cardinals are going to take, like, Joe Alt, take a tackle, or they're going to trade out of that with somebody who jumps up to get their quarterback.
The problem is they also don't have any receivers, though.
This is true.
Who's wide receiver 1 for the Cardinals right now?
Greg Dortch.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, for real, though.
That's not good.
No, they just re-signed him. No, that's for real. Their other receivers. Do you know who Michael Wilson is?
You made that name up.
Might as well have. Zach Pascal. They literally have a guy named Jeff Smith on their roster.
No, fake name.
Their number 1 is literally Greg Dortch. Andre Bocellia.
Nah, man, he's one of the 3 tenors.
Like that's what we're talking about. I think they're going to take Marv, but frankly, if the Chargers ended up in a situation where you either take Harrison or take Odunze, Jim Harbaugh, well-versed in both.
Yeah.
Played against both, game planned against both. Or the League Neighbors.
Or the League Neighbors. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have a pick of the litter at wide receiver if that's the direction they want to go. But Greg Roman is their offensive coordinator, man. They're going to be very much built around being physical.
I would be so upset if I'm Justin Herbert, man. I would be so upset if my head coach just hired Greg Roman. Other signings real quick that we'll get to. The Vikings made a trade as well. They added a first-round pick. They moved a couple of day 2 and 3 picks to move back into the first round. They want a quarterback, right?
Everybody says it's McCarthy that they want.
Yeah. I'm not going to disparage another native of LaGrange Park, Illinois, another graduate of Park Junior High School, but I don't know, man. I wouldn't do that.
I think he's Anthony Richardson. Like I think he's that level of a prospect to me.
I think he's more accurate and slightly like Anthony Richardson's terrifying. Like if he was running right at you, I'd say, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in on the street way. I mean like in football pads way. Like, oh God.
Like I think he's a big dual threat quarterback in much the same way that Anthony Richardson is. And yes,
I don't think he's a bad prospect. I just don't know that you need to trade up to get. Well, maybe you do need to trade up to get him. I don't know.
Draft, you do, I guess.
A couple other moves for Commander Cam Curl. He goes to the Rams 2 years, $13 million.
I'm shocked because the Commanders could have done this deal. Easily.
My favorite team a lot of teams could have. I wish the Packers had. So apparently something is scaring teams off. That's a good deal for the Rams.
Must just not be a team fit for Dan Quinn.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, plus they get the guy from Carolina, Chin, who's a
Jeremy
Chin,
yeah.
Play linebacker. He can be that back or safety hybrid guy.
The Cam Chancellor type of player in that defense. Yeah.
Former Ram Jordan Fuller, he is headed to Carolina. Okay, so there you go. There's your circle of suck right there. Jeremy Chin from Carolina to Washington, Cam Curl from Washington to LA, and then Jordan Fuller from LA to Carolina. There's your triumvirate right there. Jordan Fuller got under 5.5. That's wild to me. One move we didn't get to yesterday, another former Commander, Curtis Samuel. He goes to Buffalo, 3 years, $30 million, 15 guaranteed. He's still only 27. Feels like he's been in the league forever.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good deal for him.
I think he's 1 year younger than Terry McLaurin or something. Which is wild to think.
I guess my thing with Buffalo committing this kind of money to Curtis Samuel isn't Shakir the same player?
I thought so.
It feels like he's a little surplus to requirements. Like you get 2 guys to do the same thing, and what you don't have is like an actual replacement for a Gabe Davis, like a better version of Gabe Davis here. Like you've replaced Gabe Davis with not a better version of Gabe Davis, but a more experienced version of Shakir.
Maybe they think they can move Shakir outside. I wouldn't, but maybe they think that.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. It is a weird fit. I agree. A couple other things real quick. The Cowboys made a couple of cuts today. Leighton Vander Esch and Michael Gallup are out.
Maybe they're both would make their way up to DC with Dan Quinn. Who knows?
They might. That's a lot of injuries between those two guys. Yeah. And the Packers, they re-signed running back A.J. Dillon to a 1-year deal using, have you ever heard of the 4-year qualifying offer?
I have not.
No, that's a new one.
They can pay. He only counts for $1 million against the salary cap, and they can pay him up to $1 million more, and it doesn't count against the cap. I've never heard of this before, but I'll take it because it's cheap. Coming up next, we've got What Is Wrong With You? Then we'll talk some Big 12 hoops later on 580 Sports Talk. Let's find a weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. Our current winner for the week, the Burger King divorce incident. The man who is running multi-faceted scams.
He impersonated a car salesman. He impersonated a bail bondsman. And those are all very good. But it's the fact that he impersonated a paralegal at a Burger King and bilked someone out of $6,300 for legal services that were not then offered.
If you are going through a divorce proceeding, one, I'm sorry. Two, if your paralegal tells you, read over these documents while I grab a large onion ring, you need new legal representation.
Can we meet at your office where you might have some documents and some law books that might indicate to me that you are actually who you say you are? Nah, man, I'm doing this, and we got the BK play place over my shoulder.
Dog, it was always such a treat to get to go climb around in one of those as a kid.
Hey, sign here, and he accidentally hands you a chicken fry.
Chicken fries also slap.
Yeah, I'm a big chicken fry fan here.
I'm going to go first today. We didn't get to this story yesterday. It made big news yesterday. Jaromir Jagr was going to be honored at the Pittsburgh Penguins game yesterday on bobblehead night. 25,000 Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads were going to be given away at, PPG Paints Arena or whatever. Well, unfortunately, they were not able to give them away because the truck was stolen. And 25,000 or 18,000 bobbleheads were stolen from the arena. They never made it there.
That is a lot of bobbleheads to steal.
The Penguins had to put out a statement saying, the Pittsburgh Penguins announced today that the shipment carrying the Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads for tonight's game against the San Jose Sharks has been stolen after its arrival in California. As a result, the bobbleheads are not in Pittsburgh and will not be distributed at tonight's game. The Penguins learned they were victims of cargo theft. After failing to receive the shipment as scheduled, the team worked with the manufacturer and transportation companies to alert the appropriate state and federal authorities who are currently working to locate the cargo. We've got our best bobblehead recovery team on this incident.
Did you see the video they put out after that?
No, I did not.
I don't know if it was Jagr or not. I saw a little clip of it, but then it was on Twitter, and then I reset Twitter, and then whatever. They had him going in a truck trying to find it, like a Penguins pickup truck, leaving trying to find it.
All right, that's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
So I need to know, was this a random truck theft or was this targeted? Because if this was targeted, I'm wondering, what are you going to do with thousands of Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads? If this was random, A, why are you stealing a truck? B, this has got to be the worst discovery ever. You think, there might be precious metal in here. There might be things I can melt down for scrap. Maybe there might be cool goods in here.
Could be cigarettes. I could,
sell loosies for a year. Oh, man, it's bobbleheads.
The Lufthansa heist, except it's Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads.
What are you going to do with 25,000 Jaromir Jagr Penguins bobbleheads?
And then they go up somewhere, and you're done. You're donezo when you try to sell them.
Yeah, I know. You're immediately getting caught. You can't put these on eBay. Everyone's looking for you.
Right. Also, 25,000, their arena only seats 19,000. So
maybe some of them were for sale.
Yeah, maybe they're going to put some in the pro shop.
I guess that's 25,000 is a lot of bobbleheads for a hockey game.
Yeah, they just hijacked that truck, and it had to be a letdown. Well, are these valuable? But also, are they incredibly easy to trace?
All right, I'm seeing this video now, Spencer. That's pretty funny. Yeah, man. Just why? That's all this comes down to. A big one.
We were shocked to be a victim of cargo theft, said Penguins President of Business Operations, Kevin Acklin. I bet.
Okay, the idea of cargo theft, I'm sure millions, if not billions of dollars are lost in cargo theft every year.
Oh, yeah.
But just reading that we suffered cargo theft, something about that sounds very funny. Especially when you're talking about bobbleheads.
When it came out, I was like, this is not real.
No, it seems fake.
Yeah.
This was a bit. No, it was very real. Someone stole 25,000 Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads.
All right, my story's gross, and I have to kind of talk around what happened in the story. but we're just going to go ahead and get through it here. A moviegoer at MJR Southgate Cinema in suburban Detroit was arrested for allegedly engaging in lewd behavior during a screening of the new Kristen Stewart film, Love Lies Bleeding, which Variety described as, quote, a sexually charged film about a pair of lesbian lovers set in the world of bodybuilding. Like, if that's your elevator pitch for a movie, I mean, I don't go to the movies like that, but I definitely don't go to the movies like this guy. But like, I might catch that one on Netflix.
Dog,
I might add to list.
I know you've got 4G, man. Like, I know you've got Wi-Fi at home.
A not safe for work photo of a man asleep in a reclining movie theater chair with himself exposed was posted by a Twitter user. The picture, to my knowledge, is still out there. Have I clicked on it? No. Should you? Also no. Who captioned the image, went to go see Love Lies Bleeding, and this drunk guy fell asleep. On the table next to his chair were several items, including 2 small bottles of liquor, a pack of cigarettes, and his ticket. He was arrested and taken to jail.
I would hope.
Yes.
So,
dog, there are websites. You can just search this. You can search lesbian bodybuilding and don't have to leave your house.
If you want to enjoy the movie in that way, just wait till it comes out on streaming, man. If that's how you want to enjoy the movie that way.
This man is an animal.
Like,
Yes.
you think it's a bad movie going experience when somebody talks all through the movie? That's got to be way worse.
Real quick. So I said the other day, Abby and I went out to the movies a couple weeks ago, and we saw, I don't even remember what the name of it was. It had one of the Hemsworths in it. It was good. It was, war movie. The guy, Russell Crowe's character, The Land of Bad, that's what it's called. Land of Bad. He makes multiple divorce jokes. He was like, oh, yeah, I've been divorced 4 times. And he makes multiple divorce jokes through the film. This guy who was sitting in the row behind us laughed out loud like it was the funniest thing he had ever heard at every single divorce joke. And I thought, okay, dude, I get it. You're on your 3rd wife or whatever. Like, we get it. You're divorced. Thank you. Just overwhelming laughter at that. Like, that's a bad movie experience. Seeing a dude out there committing a Pee Wee Herman crime is horrifying.
R.I.P. to Paul Rubin.
R.I.P. I would call the cops myself. I'm dialing 911 in the theater myself.
No, absolutely.
Sir, this man's manhood is out in front of me while I'm just trying to watch the lesbian bodybuilding movie. This wins today. I don't ever want to think of this guy again.
Yeah,
though. It loses to the Burger King divorce incident.
Yes, our scammer, our Texas scammer, our Burger King paralegal, absolutely has a strong chance to win March. I think
it does. The Burger King divorce incident. That is our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk. I need a shower, and then we're going to talk about Big 12 hoops after this on 580 Sports Talk. finishing up this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Don't forget that coming up next week as we get ready for the Men's College Basketball National Championship Tournament, we will be at Prairie Band Sportsbook at Prairie Band Casino Resort in Mayetta. All sorts of awesome promotions going on while we are there. The Parlay Your Way promotion going on, a qualified parlay bet at the sportsbook could potentially enter you into a chance to win tickets to see Inter Miami at Sporting Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium. Also, if you go enter it between now and tomorrow, you will be entered to win opening day Royals tickets as well. They've got some awesome viewing party packages that you can enter to win or can sign up to be a part. They've got the various prices available right now at prairieband.com for the College Basketball National Tournament. And again, while we are there on Tuesday from 2 until 5:30, we're off the air at 5:30 because that's when the first play-in games begin. If you just go up to the counter today, Parlay Your Way, that is the code. You get a $10 free bet right there. So an awesome opportunity for you to come hang out with us at Prairie Band Sportsbook coming up on Tuesday next week. As for the rest of the Big 12 tournament, we've got semifinals coming up today. Chalk across the board in the Big 12 tournament. It's the antithesis of the Atlantic 10 tournament. Have you seen what's going on in that tournament?
Somebody's stealing a bid is what's happening.
Yeah, it's got to be a mess. That was arguably a 2-bid league already. Now Richmond, which won the league in the regular season, is not going to get a bid. It has been a mess. The semifinals there, 5, 6, 7, and 9 seeds. That is who has made it to the semifinals of
just
the Atlantic
like Conference USA.
Yeah, Conference USA, very similar. Lot of chaos there. Big 12, not so much. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I asked CJ yesterday, Houston, you don't get a pick. You don't get to pick Houston. Who would be your next favorite to win the tournament? He said Baylor. And I kind of like that because I think Baylor might have the highest ceiling talent level-wise in a tournament this year that doesn't feature a ton of, like, super high-end talent overall. It's a good league. I'm not trying to say the Big 12 is a bad league or it doesn't have good players, but it's not like in recent years where you've seen, lottery guy, first-round pick, second-round pick. Like, there's not a lot of that in the Big 12 this year. So Baylor having a couple of those guys, I think, makes them an interesting dark horse pick.
Yeah, like just having the best dudes on the court. Like, it's never a bad idea to bet on talent.
Right.
And Baylor, I think, has the most high-end talent as far as, like, guys that are going to play in the NBA. And I'm glad you had CJ Moore on yesterday. Obviously, we were occupying the same place.
Saw him a few times.
Yeah, we saw CJ run around T-Mobile Center. I'm sure he'll be back there tonight. But I really respect CJ's ball knowledge. I think he's one of, like, not just from a standpoint of, like, I watch it and follow it closely and I'm sourced and I'm tied in, but in the sense of I understand what I'm watching. I can evaluate what it is that I am seeing. I think CJ Moore is one of the brighter college basketball minds out there. I have a lot of regard for his opinion.
Yeah.
So it made me feel good that he verbalized something that I have been thinking over the last 2 days of watching this Big 12 tournament. Where are the dudes? Like, where are the studs in this league?
There aren't many of them.
Where are the guys? And I know the NBA is not everything. Like, it's good to be a good college player. Like, Kevin McCullough's a great college player.
Jamal Shedd,
player of the year in the conference. Great college player. Could be a first-team All-American. Like, there's value in having really good college players. But there's a difference between being a really good college player and a guy who's going to play, like, professionally, where you can watch it on TNT and ESPN for a long time. And where are those guys in the league this year? Remember I said it in my mind earlier that I was going to hold for this segment? I changed my mind. I don't think there's a Final Four team in the Big 12 this year.
CJ felt a lot of the same way. He said, he was worried about the Big 12 in this year's tournament, and I understand where he's coming from.
I really like Houston. Yeah. I really like the way they play, and I love Jamal Shedd. Are they a good enough shooting team? Can they outscore somebody? If somebody is able to use a size advantage and has experienced guards who take care of the ball, and they put up a number in the 70s, can Houston match it? Like, a lot of the tournament depends on matchups, right?
Yeah.
So, Houston could get a really favorable draw and maybe not have to play anybody seated higher than 8. And they go to a Final Four and I look stupid. But, like, I don't feel awesome about Houston making like a deep tournament run. I don't feel like that's a lock, even though I think they're going to be the number 1 overall seed. Iowa State, same question. Who are the dudes on that team? Taman Lipsey's a good college player. Keyshawn Gilbert, much as I don't like how much I think he flops, is a good college player. Robert Jones is like the quintessential like college big. Like he's like a 5%, 10% better version of David Gasson is what Robert Jones is.
Yeah.
Like they've got a good team objectively. I don't feel great about them making a run because can they score it? Can they score it at a high level if they need to score it at a high level? Or can they just ugly every game up? Because that doesn't always work. The Virginia team that broke through, and I got no love for Virginia basketball, but the Virginia team that broke through had the number 1 offense in the country. The year they went and they won it all after they lost to the 16 seed.
They didn't score much, but they scored efficiently.
So you're gonna have to, and Houston's like 11th in Ken Pom in offense. It's not like they're bad, but they don't have outside of LJ Cryer elite shooting, and they're down their big men. Like they're playing a freshman big right now that Kelvin Sampson said he should be redshirting. He's barely played the sport of basketball, and we got to play him. So, like, you run into a team with some good size and some players on the interior that can do some damage. How does Houston hold up? So, yeah, that's my feeling right now is I don't feel great about looking at a Big 12 team and saying, oh, yeah, that team is going to the Final Four.
No, I'm with you. I probably will take Houston there depending on their draw. I do think Houston is that good. But, we've had someone, I wish I remembered, I'll have to scroll back through the YouTube comments earlier today, who was saying, cheating is different in the NCAA tournament. Houston plays a really rough brand of basketball. The whole Big 12 plays a really rough brand of basketball. When you don't have just difference maker individual talents to make up for a change in officiating, are you going to be able to go far? I think it's an interesting question. It might not be the be-all, end-all question, and maybe Houston has an answer for that. Maybe Iowa State has an answer for that, but I think it's an interesting question. I really do. I'm curious to see how it goes, but I agree with you. I agree with CJ. There's just not a ton of that top-end difference maker talent this year, and I think it showed, especially in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament. We've got half an hour left of 580 Sports Talk. We'll start it off with our headlines coming up after the national and local news. Hey now, final half hour of 580 Sports Talk for the week. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. He is Spencer Dupuis. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this feel-good Friday afternoon. We've still got plenty to get to. Hit us up on our Top City Metal Supply text line. 785-272-9429 is the Top City Metal Supply text line number. You can find us on YouTube as well. Wouldn't it be a great way to send us into the weekend by subscribing to our YouTube channel? You can do that. Head to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk, subscribe to the channel, and then come check out the live video stream of the show as well. Thanks to everyone who's been hanging out with us either on the Top City Metal Supply text line or in the YouTube comments throughout the show today. We'll get you a final word to take you into the weekend and take you into some K-State baseball at the bottom of the hour. K-State versus Missouri State on the diamond today. Well, right now it is time for our 580 Sports Talk headlines to take you into the weekend. First one I've got for you, I'm going to bring you some local news from the MIAA. How about that? Some MIAA basketball news. The Division II men's and women's basketball tournaments beginning this weekend. A couple of teams from the women's side of things already in action. I know for sure Fort Hays State won. They are advancing on. I know Missouri Western lost in their first games today. Northwest Missouri State also lost because they played Fort Hays State in the first round. Awesome. Get to play a conference tournament in the national tournament. That's really cool. But on the men's side of the ledger, a local team, well, they're losing their head coach. Craig Doty is leaving Emporia State. He is headed to Houston Christian at the Division I level. Doty said in a release, quote, "I want to express my gratitude to the many incredible people at Emporia State for your support and love during our 6-year ESU tenure." The Hornets had their best season in program history in 2023 and made it to the NCAA tournament. They did not make it there this year, coming up a little bit short. He also said thank you to Emporia. Alexis, his wife, and I not only raised our 4 children in the community, but also watched your children grow too. It was a special time in our family's life, and we will cherish that forever. He also posted a 400-word statement on Twitter to talk about the departure to Houston Christian. Houston Christian this past year, not a great season for the Huskies. You may remember them as Houston Baptist. They changed their name a couple of years ago due to myriad reasons. They're a member of the Southland Conference, where they finished 9th in that league this year, went 4-14 in the league, 6-23 overall. So it will be a rebuilding job for Craig Doty down in Houston. But there will be a couple of high-profile jobs at the MIAA, available for men's basketball this year. Emporia State is now open. Additionally, the job at Nebraska Kearney has been open darn near all year. Their head coach left after one game, and they had a fill-in coach for the rest of the year. So the Turnpike Tussle will have a new head coach on the Emporia sideline come next year.
Congratulations, Craig, and best wishes to him as he transitions from the Division II ranks to the Division I ranks. I would not be surprised if he is not the last MIAA coach to take a Division I head coaching job.
A lot of rumors swirling.
Just going to put that out there that maybe this is the year for Ben McCollum. Maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the time. I've read, I mean, it's been reported by the, and I wish I remember the name of the newspaper in Springfield, where Missouri State is, that Ben McCollum at Northwest is a major candidate for that job. Wyatt Wheeler, who's their beat writer for the Missouri State Bears, has come out and said, yeah, he is certainly a candidate. There are also some rumors out there that they might go in a different direction with a Division I sitting head coach. So, hard to know exactly. I will say this: Ben McCollum deserves a Division I job, and I hope he takes one. I hope he takes one anywhere they offer one. Please get out of the MIAA. And I mean that. I mean that in a positive way for him. He is a great coach. They have won a lot. Please take a job somewhere else. Speaking of the college basketball coaching carousel, a couple of notable firings within the last 12 to 18 hours. Late last night, Stanford made it official that the former Jayhawk Jared Hayes was out after 8 seasons at the helm. Never got much traction in those 8 seasons at Stanford. They finished 14-18 this year. Never made the NCAA tournament. 8 years without making the tourney at a Power 6 school is like an eternity. And it's an acknowledgement that Stanford is a difficult place to win at and recruit to.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 years, no tournament berths, and Jared Hayes is out at Stanford. They'll be looking for a new head coach. Vanderbilt also be looking for a new head coach. They axed Jerry Stackhouse after 5 seasons in which the Commodores did not make the NCAA tournament.
Another place that is hard to win at and
Yes.
hard to recruit to. A little bit easier than on the football side, but still very difficult.
And speaking of ex-NBA players with no prior college head coaching experience that were hired at Power 6 programs losing jobs, earlier today, Michigan fired Juwan Howard. They went 8-24 this year in Ann Arbor, one of their worst seasons in history. They won just 3 league games. Juwan Howard was the National Coach of the Year in 2022. 3 seasons later, he is, or 2 seasons
Two
later.
seasons later,
Two seasons later, he's out.
Did you see what his buyout is for all of what you just said?
His
Oh,
buyout
God.
It's only $3 million.
$3 million. Yeah.
Quite
Much.
small for the success that he's had, especially because he's had, according to Pete Thamel, constant NBA interest.
5 seasons, 87 and 72. He missed the tournament last year with 2 lottery picks and Hunter Dickinson, which, like, the writing was kind of on the wall.
Yeah.
Also, this year, Michigan suspended one of its players for road games.
Real good grip on the program.
Yeah. No idea what was really going on there. There was a well-reported story in The Athletic earlier today detailing some maybe some contentious issues with the way that Howard was treating players and other staff members. And so no surprise today that Juwan Howard got the axe. Remember, John Beeline left really late in that coaching cycle to be the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. That sure didn't work.
Nope.
But Juwan Howard was a late cycle hiring, and it felt at the time like that was probably as good as Michigan could have done. And at the very least, bringing in a well-respected alumnus of the program with some NBA assistant experience was probably not a bad way to go to try and keep the program's momentum going in the right direction. And for a little bit it worked, and for the last few years it didn't. And you can't go 8-24 at Michigan and keep your job.
Oh, okay. That last point you were talking about Michigan. I thought you might also be talking about a guy who coached in the NBA and was an alumnus of the college where he was the head coach for the first time. I thought you might be talking about Mike Woodson, who also went to the tournament twice and now his team stinks.
Yeah, but still has a job as of right now. That may be different in 24
I feel like you could say that about a good few coaches.
Yeah,
whether it's mid-major or Power 5.
Juwan Howard is going to have an incredible, I saw this online today, an incredible, I don't know what you would call this, epithet for his coaching career. 5 years at Michigan.
Epitaph.
Yeah. What is an epithet?
Epithet is like a
curse,
discouraging word.
Yeah. Epitaph. Yeah, thank you. 5 years. He will have coached the best ranked team in the Ken Pom era at Michigan and the worst Michigan team in the Ken Pom era in 5 years.
Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah.
Texter from the Top City Middle Supply text line from 75 asks, Stanford women's team has no problem getting good players. Why do the men have trouble? And the best answer I guess I can give you there is Stanford has been a winning program for the better part of, well, the Tara Vanderveer era, basically. She's been there forever, and her teams have won forever. And so it's a tradition thing there where Stanford men's basketball has had their moments. I don't know if they were number 1 in the country when they had the Lopez twins, but they were pretty highly ranked. They've had some good players. They've had some good teams. But the tradition is much, much different on the women's side at Stanford.
Yes. And honestly, programs like that, it depends so much on the coach. It's so much on the coach. Because, like, look at Stanford football. Look at what Jim Harbaugh did a great job there. You know how many winning seasons Jim Harbaugh had at Stanford?
How long was he there?
4 years.
4 winning seasons.
Nope.
Maybe 3.
Nope. 2.
Oh, really?
He had
First 2
2 winning seasons. 4-8, 5-7, 8-5, 12-1. David Shaw had so much success while he was at Stanford. And then it really fell apart. And then his last 4 years, he had losing seasons in 3 of them. And the other was the big COVID year.
Yeah.
Like, another program, there's not nearly the same kind of academic school that Stanford or Vanderbilt is. DePaul women's basketball's been good.
Yeah.
It hasn't been quite as good in the last decade, but they're still a tournament contender year after year. Their men's team has had like one good year in the last 30. Like that, some programs you need to have the right coach. And Pierre Vanderveer is one of the greatest to ever do it.
Yes, like all-time short list, like it's Gino Auriemma and it's Pat Summitt, and then it's her.
Yeah, like that's what we're talking about with Tara Vanderveer.
Yeah.
And when you've got that historically, how long has she been there?
Since 85.
Yeah, when you've been there for 40 years, you have more of, better ground to stand on.
Yeah.
And it's hard to win at programs like that. Northwestern's been the same way. Northwestern had never been to the NCAA tournament before Chris Collins. Northwestern, which you can make fun of it for being a nerd school as much as you want, kids literally would do homework in the crowd at Northwestern games for years.
You know the last time Stanford won a Pac-12 championship?
1971.
Well, a little more recent than that. They did do it in 2004.
Was that with the Lopez's, right?
Yeah, no, a little early for the Lopez. That was Mike Montgomery was their head coach and ended up going off to the NBA. This is the Josh Childress team.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh, really good college.
Really good college.
17-1 in the Pac-10 that year. Then they hired Trent Johnson, and they did get to a Sweet 16 in Trent Johnson's last year. Then they hired Johnny Dawkins.
How'd that go?
One more than they lost, but they went to the NCAA tournament precisely one time in 7 years. And that is one time more than Jared Hayes ever went in 8 years. So
that's crazy.
Yes.
I mean,
they've been to the tournament one time since 2009. One time.
That's crazy.
And it was a Sweet 16 in 2014. Shout out to Johnny Dawkins. But
wow, that's wild.
Yeah, tough job.
Spencer, any headlines for you today?
Yeah, so this has kind of been talked about, but like it's official now, which is really weird because it hasn't really like sunk in that it's official now. But all 9 FBS conferences in Notre Dame, they've agreed to the new college football playoff contract.
Yes. So we talked about this yesterday on the show, but I'm glad you guys are here because you guys didn't get to join this. I am anti-playoff. I don't like that there's a playoff period, and certainly one with a biased committee that has now expanded from Spencer. You and I had this conversation a while back that when this first came up, that they might expand. This is when you and I were talking about this, that they would go from 12 teams to 14 teams when we haven't even seen a 12-team playoff. This to me, and this is a very no-duh thing, and I was talking about this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
This is not about picking a national champion. This is not about who is the best team in college football, because if it was, we would at least see what a 12-team playoff looks like before we would expand it again.
Mm-hmm.
We're expanding it again without even seeing what this looks like.
Yeah.
I know how you feel about having a playoff period, because being someone who came from a G5 football program, it at the very least,
you're included.
Feels like you. So I know you felt that way, but to go from 12 to 14 without even seeing 12, there you go. Where do you land on?
It sucks. I am virulently anti-playoff. I don't think it should exist in any form now. I was for it when it first came to be. Since it has been run the way it has been run, I've become anti-playoff. I'm anti the expansion. I'm certainly anti the expansion to 14 teams. But look, this is not a coincidence. What are the NFL playoffs? 2 conferences, 14 teams.
Mm-hmm.
What would the Power 2?
That should go back to 12 too.
Yes, it should. But what would the Power 2 like to do? Basically, the only buys being the SEC champion and the Big Ten champion. Like, it's not hard to see where this goes from here. Where this goes, where this is all going, all of it, everything that has to do with college sports, where this is all going is the cannibalization of big college sports by the SEC and the Big Ten, and everybody else gets left out. And honestly, there will maybe be some schools that get invited into that structure, and there are going to be some schools that get cut out of that structure.
Spencer, I think I've come to a personal opinion. And again, I understand, because I went to a Power 5 school. And my team sucked when I was in school, but I went to a school that was in a Power 5 conference, name brand on Fox or ESPN every week. Dan did not, went to a Division III school, but you have covered the Big 12 for a long time.
Yeah.
I think I've come to a conclusion for how I feel, for what I believe would be the best outcome for the group of 5 at this point. We get rid of the playoff. We get rid of the postseason period. Bowl games don't count for the regular season anymore. If you go undefeated, you claim a national championship. If Marshall goes 12-0 and you did nothing but play Liberty and 11 FCS schools, great, claim a national championship. Screw the playoff. This sucks. Yeah. This doesn't suck. Why not? We did that for 90 years.
Yeah, and nobody complained. Too bad. You find a formula that makes you number one. And if anybody complained and argued about it, that was part of the enjoyment people got from college football. The who's number one debate was the animating conversation that sustained how we consumed college football nationwide for those 90 years.
Or just break off and have 2 college football playoffs.
Well, that's where I think,
and that'll be your bowl game.
But you sucks too.
It does, but then you get your group of 5 is included because FCS gets their own playoff.
This is where we are.
So then group of 5 is like in the middle, like, hey, we jumped up.
No,
like James Madison.
We're going to get to something like a 30 to 40 team college football super league that exists, and that is outside of the structures of conference play as we have come to know it for years and years. And it will just all be about, it won't be about the fan experience. It won't be about, hey, can you travel? Can you tailgate? Can you watch your favorite team play? No, it'll be about, let's get Alabama and Oregon week 6. Let's get Michigan playing USC. Let's get Texas playing Penn State. Let's get those matchups because they're great for TV numbers, because this is a TV sport now more than it's ever been. This is a TV sport. And the logical end game. We will have a college football super league, and I don't know how you feel about it, Kansas State fans, but your inclusion is not guaranteed, and it may end up a closed system. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that would be kind of fun, actually, promotion and relegation from the college football super league. But if it's a closed system, there is certainly no guarantee that invites are extended to Manhattan Bowl. So then, where does that leave your proud football program?
I mean, I will go farther than that. And there will be K-State fans who disagree with me, and that's okay. We're all entitled to an opinion. You're not getting included. And neither is KU. I'm not trying to be the, KU is going to get a bid to the Big Ten. No, neither is getting included. Neither is. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
By the way, one time Oklahoma State was number 5 in the AP poll and still claims national championship. Yeah. Like that. Alabama once went 9-2 and claimed one.
Find a guy living in his basement in French Lick, Indiana, with a computer. Let him come up with a formula that shows you're the number 1 team, and then call it the Farkle System National Championship and hang it there.
And I hate this. I really do. I'm sorry to be so negative. I really do hate this crap, though. We got to get to a break. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk headlines today. When we come back, we'll wrap up the week with the final word here on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap up the weekend today on 580 Sports Talk. We've got K-State baseball against Missouri State coming up here in just a few moments on the K-State Sports Network. So before we get there, let's get to a final word. Dan, you're first.
Congrats to Topeka, Kansas's professional sports franchise. Gary Woodland, he made the cut. He's right on the line at -1 through 2 rounds of the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass. Looks like he's going to play the weekend. It's the 5th major, my favorite event of the year. Wyndham Clark, 65-65 to start his week and a 4-shot lead. And Gary Woodland's going to play the weekend, and there's lots of ways you can watch it on ESPN Plus. You want to tune in and see G-Dub.
Spencer?
I may just fall asleep tonight at like 10 o'clock. The last like 7, 8, 9, 10 days have been pretty crazy.
Between state and the Big 12 tournament?
Yes. Getting home around midnight last Saturday from the state tournament, and then getting back to the studio the other night at 12:37 a.m. and then having to record my sports. I was a little tired yesterday. So yeah, I'm excited to get some sleep this weekend.
That's what you have the weekend for. Exactly. Final word for me today is I wish that K-State was going to make the NCAA tournament. That would be a whole lot of fun. And I know that there are some folks out there, people who cover the team or are fans of the team, who have laid out the reasons why they should make the tournament, Jerome Tang included among them. And while I appreciate that effort, I just don't see it. And I wish I did. I wish a couple of those close games had gone the other way and you had gotten those 9 conference wins. Maybe that would have been enough. But it's just hard for me with a losing record in conference play, all those overtime games against teams you really probably should have blown out, not really any quality road wins on the year. I wish it was going to happen for K-State this year. Unfortunately, I just don't really see a path forward, especially after last night's loss to Iowa State. We're back on Monday with a full show. Don't forget to join us from Prairie Band coming up on Tuesday next week at the Prairie Band Sportsbook. We'll be there for a full show. Enjoy your weekend. We've got K-State baseball, coming up next. For Dan Lucero, for Spencer Dupuis, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Talk to you next week on 580 Sports Talk.